Chapter 288. This explosion of Lin fans had the other party stumped. It was as if they had seen a ghost. So strong. How was he so strong? Even a peak 5-element realm expert's hair was disheveled. To put it more crudely, his SH*T was about to explode out. To put it more crudely, his SH*T was all over the ground. Pooh! The Alliance experts underestimated Lin Fan's strength. The dense cluster of sword seeds self-destructed, and the aura was too terrifying, causing their organs to rumble. But they didn't spit out blood. Their faces swelled red, and their eyeballs looked like they were about to pop out. So amazing, they didn't even spit out blood? Lin Fan frowned and couldn't accept the current situation. With his cultivation, he would have no problem killing these people. But now, all of them were fine. This made Lin Fan doubt whether or not he was really that weak. What he didn't know was that everyone was bearing with it. In the Alliance, 5-element realm experts were people who cared about their face. When they were young, they didn't dare to say that they were top geniuses, but to many people, they were geniuses. The only difference was that there was a difference in strength. Long periods of flattery made them unwilling to lose face in front of others. This was why after the terrifying self-destruction, they really wanted to spit out blood. But they realized that no one spat first. This kind of behavior was very unfriendly. Didn't that mean that whoever spat first would lose face? There was a voice in their heads that screamed, "We can't. We definitely can't. Even if we have to be the last." The Alliance experts looked at one another, and no one said a word. Their throats were filled with blood. Blood surged in their bodies like it was about to burst out. Damn, it was really unbearable. Who can take the lead? Can't you spit out a mouthful of saliva first, so that we can follow closely behind and not be too embarrassing? But everyone seemed like they were talking about it. If you don't spit, then I won't. If you want to spit, then you can spit first. Who? Are they all so strong? Lin Fan clenched his fists and the space around shook. This strength was just shocking and exceeded that of others. Although they were peak 5-element realm experts, it was useless. He was a dual cultivator, and the strength that exploded out couldn't be described as just stacking. Moreover, with the help of the small support system, the number of cultivation techniques had reached more than 20, and all of them had reached the return to true realm. This realm had already reached the point where all things in the world returned to one. This simple move contained an irresistible might. Instantly, he felt a sharp sword will. He looked over and saw a man standing not far away. In Lin Fan's eyes, the man was like a divine sword that shone with a sharp aura. "Your sword Dao isn't bad," Lin Fan praised. It was indeed possible, looking at your age, to be able to reach such a realm. You are obviously a genius among geniuses. Today, the 5-element realm experts he beat up were all old men. Only this person looked like he was middle-aged. Even in some top sects, such an age would only be Grandmaster Realm or God Essence Realm. True enough, talent was really hard to say. Sometimes it was really strong, so strong that people were a little afraid and fearful. So for this middle-aged man to be able to reach such a cultivation between No Doubt's realm and Knowing Destiny realm, it was really shocking. Thank you for your praise. Let me introduce myself. I am Wang Yaoer. I learned the sword when I was 3, and my teacher was Sword Path Master Guyuan. Now, I have a sword, please teach me. Wang Yaoer focused. His eyes seemed to hide 2 swords, sometimes sharp and sometimes hidden. Pooh! The surrounding 5-element realm experts couldn't help but spit out fresh blood from their throats. Damn, it was too unbearable to hold it in. Half of their throats were filled with blood, and as expected, it felt much better to spit it out. But the scenes were a little shocking. All the Alliance experts raised their heads and spat out a mouthful of blood. Their postures were really mesmerizing. Wang Yaoer was attracted and looked at those people. He frowned and panicked. What was going on? Why they all spit out blood? Could it be that his swordsmanship was really so terrifying? If 1 or 2 of them spat out blood, it would be understandable. But now that they all spat out blood, that was a little off. With his strength, he was confident that even if they were peak 5-element realm, he could use his sword intent to injure them. But now that there were so many of them, he shook his head and tossed such impractical thoughts to the back of his head. How could he think like that? He was actually afraid. That was impossible. His sword Dao shouldn't be afraid. It should be to charge forwards bravely and slash open the sky to train his sword Dao. Lin Fan looked at him. Okay, with your strength, naturally, you are my match. But since you are sincere, I will grant you your wish. I will use my sword to test your sword moves. He reached into the void dimension and took out a long sword. This sword is normal and can be broken by 2 fingers. It is called Repentance, and the master passed it to me before he died. There is nothing special about it. It is just a normal sword. Please. Lin Fan held the sword and waved it. His actions were casual, but he gave off a unique aura. Wang Yaoer didn't dare to be careless. Lin Fan's sword Dao shocked him, but to fight with a true sword Dao expert was something that he dreamed of. At that moment, Wang Yaoer closed his eyes. The sword intent, which was already very sharp in the first place, rushed into the sky with a rumble, breaking through the clouds and piercing the horizon. At that moment, the other party opened his eyes and shouted softly. He took a step forward and attacked with the sword in his hand. The great Dao was the simplest. The other party's cultivation in the way of the sword was indeed very strong. At the very least, he had cultivated a few of his sword techniques to the level of returning to the basics. Otherwise, there was no way he could have such power. A cold sword light flashed. He didn't see any traces of the sword, but he could sense the terrifying sword intent. Lin Fan stood there and didn't move at all. He smiled, and when he was about to reach him, something shocking happened. Lin Fan didn't use the sword and hollered in rage. God body and true essence exploded. He clenched his fists and smashed down with a terrifying aura. Sword Dao 1-on-1. You dare to invade, and you dare to make such a request. Are you even worthy? Hong Long. Kacha. Lin Fan's punch was simply too terrifying, causing the void to shatter. The long sword in the other party's hand was shattered. Lin Fan's fist then landed on the other party's body, causing some parts of his flesh to explode and fall to the ground, creating a huge crater. Kiki. Lin Fan laughed in disdain. Sword Dao 1-on-1, he was sick in the head. As for Sword Dao spirit, he could talk to people who specialized in the Sword Dao. His Sword Dao was just a hobby. He didn't specialize in using the sword. Wang Yaoer laid on the ground and had no more energy left. He stared at Lin Fan with one eye that was filled with unwillingness. Go with unwillingness. How can I let you leave satisfied after sensing my sword intent? That would be too satisfying for you. Moreover, you are a genius amongst geniuses. Leaving you alive is a problem, so it is best if I kill you in the cradle. Lin Fan didn't think about competing with him in the Sword Dao. Only someone sick in the head would have such thoughts. The Alliance members around were injured. Some Void Realm and God Essence Realm experts had retreated long ago. They saw that the situation wasn't right, so why would they risk their lives to fight Lin Fan? To them, living was the most important thing. Although you can provide me with rage points, in case anything happens, it is time to send you all on your way. Lin Fan had thought about it. If he didn't kill these people, he would just be leaving them a problem. As for trapping their cultivations, it was a waste of time. To the people of Maigu City who sacrificed themselves, that was something they didn't want to see. All of you die. Lin Fan disappeared from the spot and started to suppress those 5-element realm experts who thought they were strong. Maigu City Alliance Camp. In a room with many high-tech equipment, the equipment beeped with warning sounds. A bunch of Alliance technology members panicked. Not good. Go out and search. Their life signs are disappearing. They're in danger. Quick, informed the general. Their life signs are disappearing quickly, and there are many casualties. Go help them. Instantly, it was a mess. Everyone was filled with disbelief. This time, the search team was made up of experts. When they gathered together, it was an extremely terrifying force. But now that their life signs were disappearing, it meant that they were in trouble. This was their territory, so who was so cruel to dare to behave so arrogantly here? Very quickly, someone ran out to inform the higher-ups. If this continued, then they would all be wiped out. Lin Fan casually tossed a corpse out and looked into the distance, What a waste, those fellows ran really quickly. 5-element realm cultivators were all killed. Those void realm and god essence realm ran too quickly, like dogs. Once there was any movement, they would run away with their tails between their legs. Of course, he had to ask the dogs to forgive him. He really couldn't find any other words to describe it. As expected, I overestimated the intelligence of the Alliance. There really aren't any experts hiding among them. Lin Fan didn't stop, leaving right away and hiding into the darkness. At the same time, he understood why they could find him. So they relied on equipment. How despicable. It seemed like he really couldn't come out in the middle of the night. Otherwise, it would be too dangerous. But it was impossible for him to leave Maigu City just like that. Since he was here, then he had to waste a bunch of energy here. He wanted to let them know. Even if his strength couldn't suppress them, he would go all out. Like a wolf, he would bite off a piece of meat from their bodies. He would make them feel pain and make them cry. He definitely wouldn't let them off so easily. When Lin Fan left for a period of time, a terrifying aura enveloped the entire area as a figure descended. Looking at the situation around him, his expression was one of extreme rage. Damn, 8-star General Shao, who, he had a huge build like a small mountain. Compared to him, the corpses around were really small and weak. The corpses around were all of the experts. This was a heavy loss for the Alliance. They didn't even know who did it, and so many people died. No matter where one was, one wouldn't be able to calm down. Chapter 289. The next day, Lin Fan hid in the cave. He was worried that if he was too close, it would be easy for the Alliance to find him. So he went to a place further away. Maigu City Alliance definitely wouldn't let him off. They would definitely send a large number of people to search for him. It didn't matter. Search slowly. Once you are tired, it will be time for me to take revenge. At that time, all of you will regret your actions. King Wudong's main camp. In the cabinet, King Wudong held a piece of paper in his hand. He looked at the contents, and his expression changed. Monster Emperor. He gritted his teeth in rage. He didn't expect Monster Emperor to do such a thing. As expected, he was a lunatic. His thoughts were too simple, and he didn't even think about this step. At that moment, there were people paying their respects outside. Enter. King Wudong lit up the piece of paper, and only after it was burnt to ashes did he open his mouth. Advisor Lu Xian bowed and walked in from outside. He knelt on the ground and said excitedly, "Your Majesty, I have brought a helper for you, someone who can help you achieve your wish." "Oh, who?" King Wudong asked excitedly like he was eager to know. Lu Xian smiled to himself. As long as he recommended talents to His Majesty, once His Majesty overthrew the imperial dynasty, he would become a powerful official. At that time, his glory would be limitless and no one would dare to offend him. A person that you can't even imagine. "Please wait, he is outside." Lu Xian turned his head and said, "Come in, we can't let you wait for too long." Very quickly, a guy walked in and stood beside Lu Xian. He cupped his fists. "Greetings, King Wudong." Since you are here to join me, then why aren't you kneeling?" King Wudong squinted his eyes and said unhappily. The guy took off his wig and smiled. "Wudong, please don't take offense. I'm a secret envoy from the Alliance headquarters and am here on orders to discuss cooperation with you." Foam! A light breeze blew past. A dagger appeared on the guy's neck. Behind him stood a man with an extremely cold aura. It was like as long as King Wudong gave an order, he would kill him. "Wait." King Wudong waved his hands to stop them. "Alliance, how bold. As an Alliance member, you actually dare to come to my camp." He then looked at Lu Xian. "You knew that he was from the Alliance and still dared to bring him over?" Lu Xian lowered his head and said, "Your Majesty, this is an opportunity." The Alliance agent said, "If King Wudong doesn't want to work with us, then just kill me." King Wudong looked at him and smiled. "Since you are here, why are you still killing me? Your Alliance actually knows that I am rebelling. It seems like your information source is really wide." The Alliance envoy said, "Respectable King Wudong, the Alliance has no ill intentions towards you. We even hope to work with you. You are a natural reformer, to overthrow the old system and introduce a new one. We respect your courage, but based on what we know, it is too difficult to overthrow the imperial dynasty with your current strength. We are willing to help you." King Wudong laughed out loud. "I am rebelling, and you can say that I'm so amazing. But how do I believe that you are helping me sincerely? So what if you're using me?" The Alliance envoy said, "It is as you worry. What if we use you? Actually, you can wait, and you will see our sincerity. After all, we really hope to work with someone like you and not the imperial dynasty who is hostile towards us." King Wutong squinted his eyes like he was sizing him up. "Let me ask you something. Was Monster Emperor bought over by you?" The Alliance envoy said, "No, Monster Emperor wasn't bought over by us, but we are working together. But truthfully, Monster Emperor is really temperamental and isn't someone we want to work with. You're the one we want to work with." Advisor Lu Xian said, "Your Majesty, the Alliance is really strong. With their help, you can easily unify the imperial dynasty." He was eager for King Wudong to work with the Alliance, overthrow the imperial dynasty, and let King Wudong be the leader. He just needed to be the most powerful official under him. He didn't have high expectations, and it wasn't good to think too much. At that moment, King Wudong was cursing in his heart. CK your grandma. My royal brother. The Alliance has found me. What should I do? This is already out of my league. Why haven't I faced this in the past? Why do I want to work together now? While King Wudong was silent, the Alliance envoy thought that he was hesitating or thinking about it. "You can see our sincerity, and maybe you will know whether or not you should work with us," the Alliance envoy said. King Wudong felt that it wasn't good to continue thinking about it. His image was that of a lawless and rebellious King Wudong. "Okay, just one simple word." He didn't want to say anything else. His meaning was obvious. "Let me see your sincerity. If it isn't enough, then don't blame me for not working with you. As for Lu Xian, very good, I will keep you. Let's see what else you can pull in. When the chance comes, I will wipe you all out. You won't regret this choice. Then I will take my leave." The Alliance envoy lowered his head and left. A few days later, Lin Fan had been searching for a chance, but it was hard to find. He bumped into the Alliance's search team, but he didn't dare to attack. After going through it once, there wouldn't be a second time. Did they really think that the Alliance was stupid? They would definitely have experts following them at all times just to lure him out. Lin Fan snuck away and continued to hide. He was going to wait for the most opportune moment to bully them. Luckily, there were many caves around Maigu City. Next day, Lin Fan stayed in the cave and leaned against the wall. He thought about his home in Yu City. He didn't know how his father was and whether or not he was okay. He wanted to go back and take a look, but he knew that he couldn't. His current strength wasn't enough, and he needed to continue working hard. He thought about how his father would be shocked when he saw how powerful he was when he reached the peak of his power. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. But pong, a giant palm smashed through the cave and then appeared behind Lin Fan's head. It grabbed his head and pressed it to the ground. The unstoppable power caused Lin Fan's body to pierce through the ground. The powerful impact directly flattened the small mountain. "I searched for so long, so it is here." 8-star General Shao who appeared where Lin Fan was. This place wasn't a cave anymore. It had been flattened into flat land. He searched for several days and flattened all the caves he passed. He believed that Lin Fan was still there and just hiding. Sure enough, he found this guy today. Pong. The ground in the distance split open and Lin Fan broke out. He was in a bad state and blood seeped from the corner of his mouth. He looked at the mountain-like person in shock. Who was this person? Where did he come from? How did he find him? Many questions appeared in his mind, and he wanted to know who this person was. This person was so strong and nearly crushed his head. He had never felt death cover him, but he wasn't afraid at all. Wasn't it just death? He made it sound like it was terrifying. It wasn't like he hadn't died before. If not, he wouldn't have come here. Of course, luckily his cousin wasn't here, otherwise he would have been beaten up. Not bringing his cousin out was a wise choice. But he didn't. Each step he took was really stable, and he was also really cunning. He waited until the enemy was about to give up on him and relax before he would come out to teach him a lesson. But the situation now was a little complicated. Young bastard, you did everything near Maigu City, right? Xiaohu asked. Lin Fan shook his head and said calmly, No, you definitely recognize the wrong person. Look at my looks. Do I look like a bad person? Is that so? Did I recognize the wrong person? Xiaohu touched his head and asked. Yes, I must have gotten the wrong person. I was just passing by. How could I possibly do anything bad? But a few days ago, I saw a perverted guy heading in that direction. I wonder if he's the person you're looking for. Lin Fan said. Xiaohu looked in that direction and smiled. When he smiled, his eyes became aligned. Oh, I am sorry. It seems like I recognized the wrong person. The moment he said that, he turned around and walked into the distance. Lin Fan heaved a sigh of relief. So dangerous, he didn't expect this guy to be a fool. But suddenly, his hair stood up and a dangerous aura covered him. Xiaohu lowered his head and gave a cruel smile. His eyes were dark and sunken. He moved and instantly disappeared from the spot. When he appeared, he was in front of Lin Fan. A giant palm slapped towards Lin Fan. Do you think I am a fool? You are a fool. Lin Fan didn't dare to be careless. He hollered in rage and pressed forwards with his palms. Pung! What terrifying strength! Lin Fan frowned. When he slapped, the surrounding air seemed to have turned into blades, slicing his skin. With his current god body cultivation, it was extremely tough, but many wounds appeared. How long? Lin Fan flew backwards like a cannonball, smashing many pieces of stone. So strong. He bore with the pain. Not good. He met a true expert. Moreover, it seemed like he cultivated physique and had reached a really high level. Just as he was thinking about this, Lin Fan appeared beside him and moved forwards at the same speed as him. What a crazy expression. Xiaohu's face was vicious and seemed really maniacal. He kicked Lin Fan's waist. Scum, you are so arrogant. I will beat you up. How long? Lin Fan's waist was struck, and his organs shook. Cracks appeared like they were about to shatter, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. In the air. Damn! Lin Fan hollered in rage. His body spun, and his fingers landed on the ground. He grabbed the ground and pulled out 5 long marks before he managed to stabilize himself. So painful. Fortunately, he had cultivated the heavenly body secret art. Otherwise, that kick just now would have caused his internal organs to explode. He raised his head and looked into the distance. That tall body gave one a huge sense of suppression. His shadow stretched out like an ancient beast. That was a ferocious aura, a human-shaped beast. Chapter 290. This was the first time Lin Fan met someone who cultivated physique to such a realm. But he definitely didn't reach a high realm. If not, that kick would have caused him to explode. He wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth. He didn't fear anything, reaching out and raising his thumb. He then lowered it. You are trash. Then he suddenly cried out in surprise and pointed into the distance. Look, your mother is flying in the sky. Shua. Xiaohu turned his head and didn't see his mother flying in the sky. Instantly, he was furious. Xiaohu hated people lying to him, especially when he really wanted to see his vicious mother fly in the sky. Lin Fan didn't say any nonsense. If he could win, then so be it. If he couldn't, then he would flee. There was no need to be a hero. There was no need. Moreover, it wasn't worth it. Flee. He was really quick. He turned around and fled right away. He had to use all his strength to fight, so naturally, he had to use all his strength to flee too. He smashed forwards, shattering the space around him, but in front of a difference of 2 realms. If he could still escape, then his cultivation level would have collapsed into dogsh *T long ago. Xiaohu looked at the fleeing body like he was looking at an ant slowly moving forward. He was so slow. Kakik. He laughed. His smile was really dark and sunken. With a pung, he disappeared from the spot and appeared in front of Lin Fan, blocking his path. Lin Fan was stunned. That speed is just too quick. Xiaohu smiled. Little scum, in front of absolute strength. Everything is just wishful thinking. I am 2 realms higher than you. All right, you are 5-element realm. Above is yin-yang realm, and above that is domain. Between us, there's a huge gap. Look. Xiaohu snapped his fingers. The surrounding space shook, and then a waterfall-like power covered the area. Gather stone. Instantly, the stone on the ground cracked, turning into pieces that struck forwards, locking Lin Fan down. Instantly, Lin Fan was wrapped up into a ball. Destroy. Xiaohu stood there and didn't move, but the words he said seemed to contain some sort of will that was able to affect the surrounding things. There was a loud explosion. The ball exploded, forming a thick dust cloud in the air. Cough, cough. Lin Fan coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood. What strong technique. It looked simple, but his body felt as though it was under some sort of extreme pressure. Your physique is not bad. To be able to withstand this move, I am slightly interested in you. Domains are things that don't belong to me. I despise it. Hence, I will use my own strength to tear you into pieces. Don't think that I'm going easy on you. My own strength will be the most terrifying to you. Ha ha ha. Xiaohu laughed out loud like there was something wrong with his head. Instantly, his smile stopped, and he disappeared from the spot. When he appeared once more, he was in front of Lin Fan. Charge! The other party growled and pressed his palms forward. He used his strength to crush the air and form a terrifying impact. Rumble! A shock wave swept through the air, crushing the space until it cracked. Mother of Asterisker, is this how you bully people? How could Lin Fan hesitate? He roared, and the power of dual cultivation burst forth. His true energy boiled, and phenomenons appeared frequently. For absolutes of cold domain, Chaos Fist. Lin Fan did not dare to be careless, as he fused 4 types of extreme powers together and slammed out at the other party. Pung! The 2 powers clashed. At the start, they were evenly matched, but very quickly, Lin Fan's chest was struck. With a pung, he was sent flying and smashed into the ground. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. I won't die here, right? Lin Fan climbed up from the ground and was a little worried. It wasn't worth it to die in the hands of this person who was sick in the head. Sword Seed. Instantly, numerous sword seeds floated behind him. The special internal strength buff made the sword seeds even more terrifying. He waved his arm. The sword seeds were like arrows, covering the sky and covering the earth, attacking the other party in a dense manner. Small tricks. In front of absolute strength, any resistance is just a struggle. Xiaohu smiled, but that smile was filled with mockery, and he didn't care about Lin Fan's attacks at all. He allowed the sword seeds to strike him and appear beside him. Explode. Hung Long. The sword seed exploded, and extreme sword intent tore everything around it apart. The space in front of Xiaohu seemed to have been cut off from normal space. It was calm and wasn't affected at all. Lin Fan fled in another direction. Damn, where did this fellow come from? Till now, he still didn't understand where he came from. He was so low profile and never acted arrogantly. But now, even if he was so low profile, he was still found. Who would he talk to? Moreover, he was such an impulsive person. His strength suppressed him by 2 realms. Yin-Yang realm, domain realm. Was his ability to lock down a domain? He had seen the battle between Zhao Lishan and the 9-star marshal from afar. The 2 of them had indeed reversed the yin and yang of the 5 elements, forming a vast domain. Those with weak cultivation would not be able to control themselves if they entered that domain. You want to run? Xiaohu smiled. He stepped forwards and the space around him collapsed. A crack spread out and the target was Lin Fan. At that moment, Lin Fan sensed the terrifying aura behind him. He turned his head and punched forwards, clashing with the power that tore open the space. How long? A shocking aura exploded. Kid, feel the pain in your body. Xiaohu instantly appeared in front of Lin Fan. He pushed out with a simple palm, and the space around him collapsed. Lin Fan was shocked. Reverse heaven and earth. This was an extremely strong cultivation technique. When he punched out, it was as if heaven and earth were flipping. But General Xiao, who was just too strong. That palm was like smashing a rock with an egg. With a pung, it smashed on a Lin Fan's body. Lin Fan was smashed into the ground, and a giant hole appeared. The surrounding stones all flew into the air. Pooh! Lin Fan's body bled, and at least a few of his ribs were broken. He got up. He wiped away the blood at the corner of his lips. His eyes looked solemnly at the giant body in the air. I am not strong enough. When I face a true expert, I am no match at all. Just like those people I killed, they are so powerless against me. No, powerless will never appear on me. So what if you are strong? I won't fear anything. Xiaohu squinted and felt that this native was strong. As expected, he noticed it. Otherwise, things would have really happened. There was a gap of 2 realms. If he hadn't met Lin Fan, he wouldn't have believed it. But the reality happened in front of his eyes, and he believed it. Because of that, he was even more determined to kill this native. Leaving him alive would be a huge problem. There were many geniuses in the world, but some were too arrogant. Before they grew up, they were killed. Even if they were the top talent in the world, it was useless. Strength was the most important thing. Scum, you make me think about someone. The fellow who is publicly recognized as the top talent in the Alliance. He cultivated like drinking water and reached God Essence realm at 20. He was just too arrogant, scolding the general in front of everyone. Do you know how that kid died? Let me tell you, I crushed his bones piece by piece and killed him. Your talent is much stronger than his, but it is useless. You are too weak, so what if you're talented? Ha ha. Xiaohu laughed like he was enjoying the joy of killing a genius. Lin Fan stood up from the deep hole and stared at him. Fresh blood flowed down from his brow and blocked his vision. Damn it, I'm a young master from a rich family with smooth skin and tender flesh. How could I encounter such a situation? How unlucky. But he wouldn't admit defeat. Rage burned in his heart as he activated all the cultivation techniques he had. True essence was being consumed at a crazy rate. Each second, he was consuming all the true essence of a peak void realm expert. He was still improving. 5-element realm true essence was thick, but when he burned it, it wasn't enough. Wong wong. The ground shook and numerous pieces of stone were pulled up into the air. Lightning fell from the sky and crackled like a dragon, spreading along the ground and through the air. Kiki, decent strength. Xiaohu waited for Lin Fan to explode. Continue. Let me see how strong you are. Although he said that, but Xiaohu's heart wasn't calm. The strength that Lin Fan gave off wasn't something that normal 5-element realm experts could have. The strength that he consumed in each breath was terrifyingly strong. He couldn't let him live. He definitely couldn't let this kid live. Xiaohu had seen many geniuses, but this was the first time he had seen such a sick one. At that moment, Lin Fan's aura had reached its peak. His palm had the power to reverse heaven and earth. Even the 5 elements were rumbling and spinning. He clenched his fingers and formed a fist. 9-dragon technique. Many dragons wrapped around his body. Lin Fan raised his head proudly. Even if I am weaker than you, I won't back down. Let me see how strong you are. How long? He instantly rose into the air and struck toward Xiaohu. Interesting. Xiaohu smiled. He didn't attack, but this kid was the one asking to die. How interesting. However, if it was just Xiaohu frowned and felt a little surprised. The kid in his eyes was just trash, but he wasn't normal. At that moment, this fist was Lin Fan's strongest, merging the power of God body and true essence. When he punched out, a long white energy wave appeared and the surrounding space shattered. Xiaohu punched forwards. Pung. The 2 fists clashed and time seemed to have stopped. At that moment, the ground beneath Lin Fan's feet was squashed and a white shockwave spread out. The ground caved in and formed a deep hole. Not bad. Xiaohu smiled. Ah. Lin Fan raised his head and was stunned. Pung. Instantly, Lin Fan felt like his body was about to explode. His entire body was pierced into the ground. But Xiaohu didn't stop. He crushed the ground and grabbed Lin Fan. He tossed him, his fists clenched in front of his chest, and then exploded forth. The fists were traceless, and all of them landed on Lin Fan's body. How long? Lin Fan flew backward and rolled on the ground. He laid there and didn't move at all. Large amounts of blood flowed out from the wounds on his body, and it instantly turned into a blood hole. Kid, how is it? Xiao smiled and asked. Lin Fan's fingers moved slightly, and then he slowly climbed up. His body was covered in blood, and he had turned into a blood person. Nothing much. doesn't hurt or itch. Are you a girl? Maybe he was really going to die. Since that was the case, why not have some courage? He wasn't afraid of dying. Chapter 291. Of course, if he didn't fight to the end, then he wouldn't admit defeat. It was only his body that hurt. True essence and stamina didn't decrease at all. He could still continue. Right, he could continue. Should I refresh my stats? It wasn't enough. God body couldn't be washed away, as once he did, he would die. So, he could only wash away true essence. Cultivation techniques couldn't be washed away either. With his current situation, when he reached initial 5-element realm, he could cross 2 small realms to suppress peak realm. He could even cross an entire realm. Not only did he rely on his realm, but he also cultivated so many techniques. Moreover, each cultivation technique had to be raised to the highest returning to true realm to have such an ability. His current situation was not normal. With so many cultivation techniques, if he didn't rely on the small support system, it would be a daydream to find a random genius to cultivate all of them to the return to true realm. It would be better to wash his face and have a good sleep. Perhaps he could achieve it in his dreams. But he couldn't wash away all his true essence. Otherwise, without true essence as a foundation, all the cultivation techniques would be useless. If he washed them away and raised his god body cultivation, maybe he could raise a few small realms. Unfortunately, it was useless. It would definitely make his body weaker. Right now, cultivating both internal and external cultivation was the strongest path. But if he didn't test it out, he wouldn't be satisfied. Suddenly, the air shook. Lin Fan raised his head. His tightly clenched fists relaxed. He was finished. General Xiao Hu, why didn't you tell us that you found the target? Right. You made it so hard for us to find him. Don't move. This is my target. General Xiao Hu looked coldly at the people who came over. He told them to just stand there and not bother about anything else. Xiao Hu, you are too arrogant. Some other 8-star generals were unhappy. Xiao Hu raised his head and said in disdain, if you are unhappy, then come. Let's see whether or not my fists will make you feel better. The old generals in the air were furious. Xiao Hu was too arrogant, but he did have the right to be so. As for fighting with Xiao Hu, forget it. Xiao Hu was one of the top 8-star generals and was just a step away from 9-star general. Lin Fan felt that things weren't right. He was too careless. No, actually he wasn't careless at all from start to finish. He didn't even treat the Alliance members in Maigu City as fools. After harvesting a wave, he left Maigu City and hid, not giving them a chance to find him. The other generals didn't find him, but Xiao Hu did. Perhaps this is fate. When he didn't want to hide, even if he was right in front of him, the other party might not be able to find him. But if he wanted to hide, no matter how well he hid, he would still be discovered by the other party. Go all out. Refresh. Bug controlling technique peak. Gray true essence spread out. The highest profound fusion. He hated the insects fusing with him. But at this moment, he couldn't care less. He was already very lucky to be able to leave alive. More importantly, he hoped to use the special characteristics of the insects to escape this place at a speed that surpassed everything. Swoosh! There was movement all around. Xiao Hu was confused and then shocked. He still had the ability to fight back. It was the same for the generals floating in the air. This place was far from Maigu City, and it was hard to say how dangerous it would be. He hoped that he wouldn't bump into native experts. But to them, General Xiao Hu was just wasting time, playing until now. What they didn't know was that Xiao Hu wasn't playing at all. With his cultivation, even if Lin Fan was a dual cultivator, he could smash him with one fist. But even Xiao Hu was shocked by Lin Fan's potential. It was unknown what kind of cultivation technique the other party cultivated. His physique was terrifyingly strong. It wasn't that he was strong, but that he could take hits well. At that moment, numerous insects flew out from the depths of the ground. They were buffed by the gray internal strength and became terrifying. As compared to Lin Fan's control of the bug controlling technique, it was much more terrifying. The soil broke open. The pitch-black, malevolent worms wrapped around Lin Fan's legs and crawled. Slowly, they wrapped around his legs and didn't stop there. They continued to crawl. What cultivation technique is this? Xiaohu frowned, but he didn't move. He was interested. This genius gave him too much shock. What else did he not use? Let me take a look. Xiaohu, stop looking. Finish it quickly. If you don't want to, then leave it to me. An 8-star general appeared beside Xiaohu and said. He raised his hand and was prepared to give Lin Fan the final blow. Pung. Xiaohu raised his hand and punched, smashing him away. He said viciously, I said that I would beat up whoever dares to move. His vicious eyes were like those of an ancient beast as he swept the people in the air. As for the 8-star general who was punched away, he was furious. Damn Xiaohu. Lin Fan hollered. It was really unbearable. The insects covered his body, piercing through his skin and surging into his body. They merged with his blood and cells. That feeling was really unbearable. Am I going to become non-human? More and more bugs came from all directions. Within a radius of a few miles, tens of miles of bugs were attracted and all rushed into his body. Bug controlling technique was a special and terrifying cultivation technique. It was different from other cultivation techniques. As one's true essence got stronger, the insects he controlled would become more terrifying. At that moment, the pain that he was suffering from wasn't something that normal people could imagine. At the same time, it had high demands on his physique. If his physique wasn't strong, he wouldn't be able to support such an ocean of insects merging into his body. It swelled up. Lin Fan's body swelled up. Those insects merged together like they were one. Dozens of feet, hundreds of feet, thousands of feet. A sharp voice exploded from within the giant insect's body, resounding through the clouds. Shortly after, a terrifying shockwave spread out and swept the land. Pata! There was a loud explosion. A black tail covered in sharp teeth slapped the ground, leaving a deep hole. What monster is that? The 8-star generals who were floating in the air had their mouths agape. He was originally only as tall as a person, but now he had become a 1,000-foot monster. The giant body shocked everyone. Lin Fan was no longer Lin Fan. He had truly become a huge insect monster. His body was covered in pitch-black armor, and his 10 fingers were long and sharp. On the back of his hand, there were countless ferocious insect mouths biting, as if they wanted to devour all living things. Spikes grew out of his knees, and on his arms, curved sickle-like blades grew out. His head was wrapped in black bone armor. Maybe it wasn't armor, but it grew out of his flesh. From his neck all the way to his tail, there were spikes protruding out. He wasn't a human anymore. Kong! It wasn't a human's voice, but the cry of a weird insect. The sound wave tore through the air and caused a shocking aura. Amazing! I didn't expect such a terrifying genius to exist in the world. Xiaohu's eyes opened wide in excitement. Instantly, a giant palm descended from above and was about to smash Xiaohu into meat paste. Pong! The insect palm landed on the ground and the ground cracked. It was as if there was an earthquake and there was a loud explosion. So terrifying. Xiaohu dodged and waved his arm. Dimension slashed, and with a poochie, Lin Fan's wrist was sliced off. A sea of shrieking insects scattered all over the ground. It doesn't seem like much, Xiaohu said in disdain. But shortly after, something that shocked him happened. Many thin tentacles grew out from the wrist that was sliced off. They formed a new wrist, and then a brand new hand appeared. This, Xiaohu was shocked. This seemed to have exceeded the limits of cultivation. Right after it was sliced off, it grew out. That was just too terrifying. But even then, so what? Without strength, everything was useless. Instantly, he felt the space beside him turn upside down. He turned his head. His strong combat awareness allowed him to raise his arms. A tail turned into an afterimage, breaking through the air and sweeping forwards. It smashed onto Xiaohu's body and sent him flying. Lin Fan hollered in rage. His black eyes shone with a weird color. In the air, an 8-star general landed on Lin Fan's shoulder. He picked up the weapon in his hand and slashed towards his arm. Pucci. At this moment, the aura that Xiaohu gave off shocked the other 8-star generals. To them, This was unimaginable power. There was a swelling sound. Xiaohu's body was already really strong, and now became even stronger. His skin turned black, and he was filled with terrifying explosiveness. Monster Kid? It is time for this to end. Xiaohu smiled and then punched forwards. The aura was much stronger than before. How long? Lin Fan's incoming fist was instantly destroyed, and his entire arm was broken. His 1,000-foot body retreated. Each step he took caused the ground to shake and left a deep footprint. But to Lin Fan, it didn't matter even if his arm was broken. It grew out right away. Bug controlling technique needed thick true essence to support it. If one didn't have enough, then it would end. This is a little problematic. It is useless to break it one by one. So do I have to break it together? Since that is the case, then I can only go for real. At that moment, Xiaohu slowly raised his arm and moved it in a certain trajectory. Instantly, Xiaohu stepped back and a white energy wrapped around his ankle. With a pung, he turned into a streak of light and instantly appeared in front of Lin Fan. He hollered, "Supreme Ultimate Technique, Fist God." He clenched his fists and punched forwards, smashing into Lin Fan's body. Pung! A terrifying shockwave wrapped around Lin Fan. With the two of them at the center, a circular energy wave spread out. The surrounding 8-star generals were blown away by the energy wave, and they couldn't help but retreat. Shock appeared on their faces like they were filled with disbelief. Just this move alone had the strength of 9 stars. How long? Lin Fan's giant body flew backward like a cannonball. His body shook like waves, and a terrifying power struck his body. The bug body shattered and he died. Pung! He smashed into a giant stone in the distance and caused a thick layer of dust to rise up. Who? Xiaohu took in a deep breath, and a drop of sweat appeared on his forehead. It seemed like he forced himself to use that move. But it ended. The dust dissipated. A person stood there. Lin Fan's bug body disappeared. His body flowed with blood and an unknown black liquid. His body gave off steam, and his arms hung down. He lowered his head and didn't move at all. He allowed the blood to dye the surroundings into a blood river. Xiaohu stopped. Bring it back to study. A general hollered, "Kid, I admit that you are the strongest in the young generation. There won't be another one in 100 or even 1,000 years. Don't worry, I won't let trash touch experts. Go." Xiaohu stepped forwards and disappeared from the spot. His fingers turned into a fist, and he was prepared to turn Lin Fan into dust. Chapter 292. Lin Fan stood on the spot with his head lowered. Fresh blood dripped from his body. Tears seeped out from the corner of his eyes. "Father, I am leaving. Although I am not your real son, I understand your love. I will repay it in the next life." He understood why his father wanted him to leave. He had thought too simply. The alliance was strong and they could kill ants. He really wasn't a match for true experts. He had gone all out and didn't want to leave just like that. But he didn't regret it, as everything had meaning. For the sake of his safety, his father had borne everything alone. The grudge between them disappeared. He was Lin Fan. No matter which Lin Fan he was Lin Wani's son, and that wouldn't change. He just hoped that his father was fine. His body had reached its limit, and his willpower had collapsed. His stamina and true essence were at their peak, but his willpower couldn't take it anymore. All the bones in his body were shattered, and he was only able to stand here with a single breath. His pupils dilated, and he slowly entered a state of unconsciousness. Xiaohu was really strong, especially when he used all his strength. He used his strongest move that wasn't complete yet. He was already at his limit. "Xiaohu, you can't kill him." The surrounding 8-star generals wanted to stop him, but it was too late. They had to report to the headquarters. They were supposed to bring a top research subject back, but Xiaohu didn't allow it. Xiaohu didn't bother about them. A sure death fist struck. As long as it hit, Lin Fan would be finished. "Go. I will remember you, the most talented expert in the foreign region." Xiaohu said. The fist wind got close, and the space around couldn't take it, and cracks appeared. Lin Fan didn't move at all. He really didn't have any consciousness at all. To be able to last until now was something that was impossible in the world. 5-element realm fighting an 8-star general alone. The gap between them was like heaven and earth. To be able to last until now was already the limit of the limit. Pung! A giant body appeared and blocked in front of Lin Fan. Xiaohu's fist struck his stomach, but it didn't pierce through. It was wrapped in fat, and the fist energy slowly dissipated. You? Xiaohu raised his hand. When he saw the person who appeared, he was filled with disbelief like he had seen a ghost. At that moment, Xiaohu retracted his hand and retreated. His fist left a bloody hole on Monster Emperor's body. To anyone, such an injury was tough to take, but to Monster Emperor, it was just a normal injury. He didn't even need to purposely heal it up. Monster Emperor, what is the meaning of this? Xiaohu asked coldly. Monster Emperor straightened his fat body and looked like he wasn't agile at all. But when he moved, he wasn't slow at all. Fan! The 8-star generals who were standing in the air to watch all landed. It was obvious that when they saw Monster Emperor, they knew that what was about to happen would go against their wishes. Nothing I know of them. Of Monster Fan. I'm Monster Emperor was a Xiao. And Monster of Emperor. Of a monster. 9 gang fan of he was used of king. If they were a 9 bug gang, naturally, no one would dare to reject him. But these were alliance experts, so how would they give Monster Emperor face? Are you dreaming? Xiaohu frowned. Other people were afraid of Monster Emperor, but he wasn't. But if there was a conflict, naturally, he had to be careful. He was a vicious person and couldn't be easily dealt with. Monster Emperor smiled. He patted his fat stomach and laughed. Dream? No, I never dream. As long as something happens in a dream, it will become reality. Monster Emperor, although you are a native, you are working with the Alliance. If you save him, you will be going against the Alliance. You have to think about the consequences. You need our things, so don't you want them? An 8-star general scolded in rage. They really didn't expect Monster Emperor to appear. Based on what they knew, although Monster Emperor wasn't hated by everyone in the rich land, he had no friends. Moreover, he had many enemies. How could he have a friend that he wanted to save? Moreover, Monster Emperor was someone who would do anything to get what he wanted. Why would he fall out with the Alliance for a so-called friend? I have never failed to get what I want. Are you going to not give it to me? Monster Emperor squinted and looked at the Alliance experts. Although there were many of them, he didn't fear them at all. The person you want to save killed so many of us, so how can you take him away just like that? The bunch of 8-star generals scoffed coldly. They definitely wouldn't let Monster Emperor do whatever he wanted. Monster Emperor didn't bother about them. He turned his head and stood in front of Lin Fan. He reached out with his thick palm and touched Lin Fan's head. I once said that as long as someone is sincere to me, no matter who they are or what mistakes they make, I will forgive them. The sound of the waves you mentioned really made me feel that I actually have something that others don't. Monster Emperor laughed out loud. He was so excited that he didn't know what to say. But suddenly, his laughter stopped and disappointment appeared on his face. Unfortunately, there are too few people who understand me. Perhaps, in this world, you are the only one who understands. The sound of the waves, the appearance of the waves, they're all so beautiful. Why has no one told me these things before? Therefore, I will definitely not let you die. Pata! Monster Emperor grabbed Lin Fan's head and hollered in rage. His voice ripped open the space, and a terrifying power opened up a path. He then tossed Lin Fan into the space. Go live, we will meet again. When Xiaohu saw this, he was shocked and hollered in rage. The moment he said this, he was about to block the space. However, the void between the heavens and the earth instantly exploded, and within it, there was a ferocious insect, mouth swallowing, as if it wanted to swallow all the people blocking the void. Instantly, the space shook. Monster Emperor's fat body was really agile and instantly disappeared from the spot. When he appeared once more, he blocked Mao Shintai's path. Maigu City 9-star General Mao Shuntai stared at him coldly. Monster Emperor, have you considered the consequences? Or do you really want to die? Kiki. Monster Emperor laughed. The fat on his body shook. At the same time, there was a buzzing sound and many weird bugs appeared. He was reminiscing about it. So many years, I have never done it before. Maybe this is what the weak call a good friend. Am I weak? No. I am an expert. I am an expert. Come and fight. I am not someone you can humiliate. Monster Emperor hollered, and a terrifying aura spread out from his body. Damn fatty, you are asking to die. An 8-star general hollered in rage. How long? The space around exploded. Monster Emperor raised his head and looked at that 8-star general. Disgusting liquid dripped from his teeth. I hate people insulting me. At that moment, the space storm exploded with Monster Emperor at the center. That 8-star general's heart shook, and he actually felt like he was being stared at. 9-star General Mao Shintai's face was cold. He looked at the generals around and nodded his head. As expected, he was a crazy collaborator. If they allowed him to continue, did he really think that the alliance was easy to bully? Instantly, many experts attacked. Moreover, there was more than one, and they all headed towards Monster Emperor. Let's fight then. Who have I been afraid of? I have never feared anyone. Everything is on my own, one step at a time, one footprint at a time, climbing up to where I am now. At that moment, the sky turned dark. It was so dark that it suppressed one's soul like something was pressing down on one's body. Although Monster Emperor was strong, facing a 9-star general and a bunch of 8-star generals, the outcome wouldn't be any better. But Lin Fan didn't see it and didn't sense it. If he saw it, maybe he really wouldn't believe it. The person he wanted to kill the most would save him. Maybe if he knew, he wouldn't need him to save him. That was because he was working with the Alliance to kill all the experts in Maigu City. A long while later, Monster Emperor's body was covered in wounds and the 9-star general was slightly injured. 3 8-star generals were killed, which infuriated the 9-star general. Monster Emperor, let me ask you, where did you send him to? Mao Shuntai asked in rage. Kikik. Monster Emperor laughed with a dark and sunken expression. A playful smile appeared on his face. I don't know. Damn, the Alliance's cooperation with you has come to an end. Go and die. Mao Shintai's eyes spat out flames as he suppressed Monster Emperor. I thought that you were a strong person, but I didn't expect that you would betray our cooperation for an ant. To Mao Shuntai, he was most afraid of people like Monster Emperor who were hard to control. If he couldn't control him, then he could only kill him. Especially when Monster Emperor swallowed 3 8-star generals in front of him. He decided that he couldn't leave him alive and could only kill him. Even if it was tough to kill him, he had to. Monster Emperor's expression turned calm once more, changing back and forth. No, all of you don't understand. He grabbed the fats on his body and then released his hands. Do you hear the sound of the waves? Do you see the waves? Haze, I don't understand. Someone gave me a good reputation, and I'm going to hide it for the rest of my life. All of you can't destroy it. Lin Wani once said that Monster Emperor wasn't easy to kill. But there was something else, that Monster Emperor was really evil. He even guessed that Monster Emperor might not be a human anymore, although there was no clear evidence. But all signs proved that Monster Emperor didn't have any human characteristics. At least in terms of personality, he was just too sick in the head. He even suspected it. Insect Valley not only closed because Feng Poliu killed his master, but a portion of it had to do with Monster Emperor. The specific truth. But in some people's hearts, it was really tough to know the truth. But this battle would definitely be intense. Chapter 293. In a valley covered in white mist, at the center of the valley was a naturally formed hot spring. White steam rose up from the surface of the water. At the same time, in the white mist, there were many snow-white bodies moving about. Although one couldn't see them clearly, they were all well-proportioned. Some were shocking, while some were vast. Each had their own merits, and they were all on the same level. Laughter spread out. Senior sister, your body is so good. Senior sister, why is your place so big and I am so small? Little junior sister, I drink Hainan coconut juice every day. That's why you're so small. In the hot spring, a girl sat in the hot spring, smiling as she watched her junior sisters play in the water. There was a faint smile on her face, but it had to be said that the water in the hot spring was very shallow. Only half of her breasts were submerged. The other half that was exposed to the air was sparkling and translucent, and the water droplets that were naughtily glided into the hot spring. Suddenly, above them, a crack slowly opened up. A person fell down and smashed into the hot spring, causing a huge splash. Ah! Screams spread out. The girls in the hot spring panicked and stood at the side. They used their hands to cover their important parts and looked at the center of the hot spring in fear. Their reactions were a little slow. Logically speaking, when they faced such a thing, they would climb up right away and find some clothes to wear. They would be wary of the surrounding situation, but they didn't. Instead, they stood there and stared at the center like they were waiting. They really wanted to see what would come out from within. A red liquid seeped out from the clear hot spring and slowly dyed the water red. It looked really terrifying. The girls covered their mouths and panicked. They didn't dare to believe that the hot spring would turn red for no reason. Instantly, bubbles rolled in the center of the hot spring. Gulyalu. The bubbles were huge, and they appeared on the surface before bursting open. Ah! Lin Fan's head popped out from the hot spring. He leaned against the side and panted. Cough, cough, cough. He spat out mouthfuls of fresh blood. His body was covered in fresh blood, and a black liquid seeped out from his skin. The surrounding environment was really silent. At the same time, he felt that something wasn't right. He raised his head and looked around. What entered his eyes were many naked bodies. His gaze swept across them and stopped for a moment. Then, he lowered his head and coughed. It was originally a place for people to relax and wash away their worries, but it had turned into a vast red ocean. I'm not dead. What's going on? Where am I? He felt the condition of his body improving. The true heaven body secret technique had saved his life. This was his father's precious technique. He was really lucky. His 5 viscera and 6 bowels were no longer in a shattered state. Instead, they had solidified together, but there were still some cracks that had yet to be mended. Immediately, panicked voices came from the surroundings. Why is there a man here? Senior sister, save me. Our bodies have been seen by each other. To these girls, they were soaking in the hot spring comfortably. How could they accept the sudden appearance of a man? Lin Fan frowned. It was so noisy, so annoying. At this moment, he was in deep thought. What was going on? He also needed to recover from his injuries. The side effects of the bug controlling technique were just too huge. He felt that his body was a little weird. It was hard to describe the feeling. His blood and cells seemed to have changed. Suddenly, a strong wind struck him from the side. Lin Fan tilted his head, and a jade foot attacked him. With a pata sound, it was caught in his hand. Between his legs, a spring light suddenly appeared. Senior sister's face was flushed red, and then she shouted in anger, Lecher, put on. Lin Fan swung his arm and smashed her into the hot spring. He didn't have time to waste with these girls. Where was this place? Since he didn't die, then naturally he had to leave this place. It was tough for him to escape from such a dangerous place, so he definitely wouldn't enter the tiger's mouth. Lin Fan barely walked out of the hot spring. He was on the verge of collapsing. His injuries were much worse than he had expected. Senior sister. The girls around were all naked. Some were simply wrapped in white cloth, but due to the humid environment, one could see that their senior sister was being bullied. They all cried out in panic, but they were really afraid. That person was covered in blood. His sudden appearance caught them off guard. Senior sister is being bullied. We can't let him continue to bully senior sister. Let's go all out against him. Junior sister was afraid, but she mustered up her courage and rushed out with a loud cry. She opened her arms, and the white cloth fell down. She didn't care at all that her body was exposed. She grabbed Lin Fan's neck with both arms and hung on his back. Then she bit Lin Fan's neck. When they saw Junior sister hanging onto the back of an unknown guy, they were all really worried. They then charged up too. Lin Fan wanted to toss them aside, but suddenly he felt an intense pain in his body. That was the side effects of the bug controlling technique. His blood and cells were secreting an unknown thing. Put on. Lin Fan knelt on the ground. It wasn't because of the pressure from the girls hanging on his back, but because the situation within his body was a little complicated. Poochie. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. With a loud explosion, his face fell to the ground, and he didn't move at all. The girls around realized that the guy was stopped and retreated. Their faces flushed red. They were sure that he really saw everything. They then found some clothes and wore them. Senior sister, is he dead? The junior sister was petite and dainty. Looking at the motionless Lin Fan on the ground, she was a little afraid. She had bitten him so hard that she had left a row of teeth marks on his neck. Senior sister was really calm and had already put on her clothes. She walked over slowly and looked at the guy lying on the ground. She frowned and thought about it. Where did he come from? They want to know where he had come from and why he had appeared here. He came for no reason, and they really didn't understand. Senior sister, I think I saw him fall from the sky. The hot spring was already dyed red with blood. Did he fall because he was heavily injured? Why don't we save him? He doesn't look like a bad person. You city. Lin Wani felt really uneasy and felt like something had happened. He had already taken down the Alliance camp at the U City border. Although he paid a huge price, it was all worth it. Old Lin, what are you thinking about? Zhang Tianshan asked. He had already proven his worth. Although he wasn't strong, his formations brought many problems to the Alliance members. Moreover, at such a time, the people of U City supported him unconditionally. Many formations that required a huge price to be completed by a single person were all completed. Lin Wani shook his head. I don't know, I feel really uneasy. I feel like something has happened. Do you think something will happen to my unfilial son? It shouldn't be, right? Zhang Tianshan said, definitely not. I have read his fortune, and with his looks, he is rich and will live a peaceful life. How can anything happen to him? Enough, you can bluff others, but you even try to bluff me. If you really knew how to read fortunes, why would you be in such a bad state? Lin Wani said. Zhang Tianshan wasn't happy. Old Lin, what are you saying? How am I in a bad state? No matter what, I completed my dream when I was young and established Marshall Path Mountain. Can you not admit that? Kiki. Lin Wani laughed, but that smile was a little off, like he was saying that other people might not know what was going on, but how could he not? Zhang Tianshan panicked a little because of that smile. He definitely knew what was going on. In the past, he was able to support Marshall Path Mountain because of the wealth he accumulated when he followed Old Lin. If not for that wealth, Marshall Path Mountain would have gone bankrupt much earlier. Stop joking. Lin Wani sighed. He has grown up and can only rely on himself. Other people can't help him. Why hasn't that old bastard from Su family found an expert? Can he do it or not? He was waiting for old ancestor Su to call some experts from the top sects over. If he had those experts to help, everything would be much easier. But he knew that the chances of that happening were slim. Old ancestor Su knew what the top sects were like. He also understood that the top sects wouldn't come over to help. Phase, it is hard to say, but U City is temporarily fine. Zhang Tianshan said. Lin Wani smiled. Fine? Impossible. The Alliance wants me to die so that they will be happy. I will wait here for them to come and see what tricks they have up their sleeves. As for why Lin Wani didn't just sweep over, that was because he had his own concerns. The Alliance was similar to them, and the war was only the thoughts of a portion of them. But if the war spread to the entire world, they would suffer a huge loss here. Although he wasn't sure whether or not the Alliance had experts, he didn't want to gamble. Being able to control the balance was the greatest help. Zhang Tianshan kept silent for a moment. I will continue to make some formations. There are still a few that I haven't made. After U City, Zhang Tianshan understood how weak he was. That feeling of helplessness made him regret not going all out when he was young. It was already too late for him to cultivate now, even if he wasn't talented. As long as he was hardworking and cultivated well, even if he couldn't become a true expert, he wouldn't be like this, unable to fight at all. Do it well, Lin Wani said. He really didn't expect that Zhang Tianshan would actually have such ability. If he hadn't personally witnessed it, he wouldn't dare to believe it. Lin Fan slowly opened his eyes, as though he had just woken up from a long dream. His body hurt a little, but with the true heaven body secret technique repairing it, his body slowly recovered. What is this? Lin Fan laid on the bed and realized that his body was locked up by many iron chains. His body was also wrapped in many bandages. Before this, it was like a little blurry. Gotcha. He didn't use much strength, and the iron chains were broken. Chapter 294. Lin Fan looked around. It was a really warm room, and it looked really ancient. At least, it meant that he wasn't in the Alliance. He wasn't captured by the Alliance. It seems like someone saved me. The situation was really dangerous, and he tried his best. But that didn't mean that he could survive. Forget it. Thank you. No matter who saved me. I'll thank you properly the next time I meet you. I, Lin Fan, am not someone who casually owes favors to others. I have to repay them, especially since they saved my life. Haze, how annoying. Why did he owe people favors? Moreover, it was such a huge favor. It just made him feel helpless. But now wasn't the time to think about all this. He removed the chains on his body and got off the bed. He looked around, and there was a light fragrance in the room. When he landed, he clearly remembered that there was a group of naked women who attacked him. He threw one away, and then another group rushed up to him. The situation was chaotic. He wanted to toss them all aside, but due to his injuries, he wasn't able to. It was a little embarrassing. Not good. Lin Fan thought about a possibility. Harvesting yang to replenish yin, and he became a bunch of women's cauldrons. Every day and night, he felt terrified just thinking about it. If that was the case, then that was a little scary. He pulled open his pants, and it was dry. There was no wet and soft feeling, which meant that he wasn't violated. He patted his chest and felt much more at ease. Guys had to learn to protect themselves when they were outside. They couldn't be careless, otherwise, losing their chastity was a small matter. If they were captured and used as prostitutes, that would be a huge problem. Of course, he didn't need to be too nervous. When he was at his weakest, they could have easily killed him, but they didn't. So, maybe this place wasn't dangerous and it was possible that he was overthinking things. He pushed open the door. A beautiful scene appeared in his eyes. A breeze blew and the cherry blossoms in front of the house fell. It was really beautiful and made one feel relaxed. This really is a good place. Lin Fan walked in front of the cherry blossom tree and took in a deep breath. He thought about everything that happened during this period of time. The short moment of peace allowed him to relax. But where's this place? He looked around and was slightly surprised. Was this some kind of sect? This was because he saw many buildings on the mountain peak in the distance. There were also many people walking around. Even though it was very far away, with his cultivation, it was very easy for him to see them clearly. And now, he was standing on a mountain peak. Unexpectedly, I ended up in a certain sect. Lin Fan shook his head. Just who was the one who did this? Why would they send him to some sect? Could it be that there was some hidden meaning behind this? If Monster Emperor was here, he could reply to him. Don't think so much, I just teleported randomly. The dimension tunnel didn't send you to a fixed location. If you were unlucky, you might even land above a sh*t hole. It wasn't impossible for you to fall right into the sh*t hole. Footsteps could be heard. Lin Fan looked back. He saw a petite girl walking over. She was walking happily, but when she saw Lin Fan standing under the cherry blossom tree, she screamed and turned around to run. He could vaguely hear people shouting, "Senior sister, he is awake, he is awake." Lin Fan shook his head. He was so shocked that he couldn't keep calm. However, a scene appeared in his mind. It seemed like this girl wasn't wearing any clothes. Very quickly, he tossed those scenes out of his mind. What was he thinking about? So what if he was naked? Even if the top 10 beauties in the world danced naked in front of him, he dared to guarantee that he would be able to maintain a calm state of mind without blinking or blinking his eyes. He would definitely not experience the so-called congested state. You don't believe me? Okay, go pull the beauty over and dance in front of me. See whether or not I will be calm. A decent sect, it is several levels higher than Marshall Path Mountain. Lin Fan muttered. He wasn't prepared to have anything to do with this sect. Once his injuries healed up, he would leave this place. He still had to return. The border defense line might not need him, but with him, the situation would be different. However, he didn't know where he was and had no sense of direction at all. Very quickly, dense footsteps spread out. Lin Fan knew that the main character was here. Good, he could ask where this place was. Senior sister, He is awake. He is there. Junior sister Yuan, Jojo said. With her senior sisters by her side, she had a lot of courage. Lin Fan looked at the bunch of girls. He felt that they were familiar, but also a little foreign. Maybe if they weren't wearing clothes, he would be really familiar with them. After all, there was a huge difference between wearing clothes and not wearing clothes. At that moment, the girl who walked towards Lin Fan was expressionless and cold. She couldn't blame anyone. No matter who it was, when a guy suddenly fell from the sky while they were soaking in the hot spring, it wasn't a surprise anymore. It turned into terror. She didn't kill Lin Fan while he was unconscious. That was enough to show how magnanimous she was. Of course, she was indeed magnanimous and could contain a huge amount of people. Before she said anything, Lin Fan walked forwards and cupped his fists. I am Lin Fan. Thank you all for saving my life. His actions frightened junior sister Yuan Jojo so much that she hid behind her senior sister. She thought that this person wanted to kill her, but this was the sect, and he definitely wouldn't dare to. As the senior sister, naturally, Ning, she was furious. Not only did this guy appear in their hot spring, he even grabbed her leg and tossed her into the hot spring. Just these things alone were intolerable. But as the senior sister, she couldn't lose face in front of them. She also couldn't lose the sect's face. Wanxiang sect, dusk, peak senior sister Ning Shi. These are my junior sisters. Ning, she said. Lin Fan smiled and cupped his fists once more. Greetings, all of you. Please forgive me for the inconvenience I caused. He is a little polite. Some girls teased. I am really grateful that all of you didn't attack me when I fainted. Thank you for not killing me. Lin Fan said. He was really thankful. If this happened to a normal person, even if they didn't die, they would have sliced off a certain part of their body. Wait, isn't there something wrong with what I just said? Yeah, it seemed like there were some parts that didn't suit him. The expressions of the 6 young ladies, who were originally fine, suddenly changed. Truth be told, these 6 young ladies could indeed be considered as outstanding beauties. Especially when their expressions changed, it was even more alluring. Forget it, why think so much? They weren't the same kind of people. They really weren't the same kind of people. Lin Fan didn't feel like there was anything wrong and asked, Do all of you know where you city is? He just wanted to know where you city was. This place was surrounded by mountains with numerous peaks. He lost his sense of direction, and it was tough to find an accurate location. No one said anything. He noticed that their gazes were a little off, like there were flames of rage. Rage points plus 111. Rage points plus 111. Such weak rage points, it was just too small. I don't know. Ningxi's tone was a little cold. She brought her junior sisters and left. When they were about to leave, she replied, You can stay here for a few days, but after that you have to leave. Wanxiang sect doesn't allow outsiders to exist, and you can't go anywhere. If others find out, you will bear the consequences. The moment she said this, the 6 girls left. As expected, it is hard to guess a woman's heart. She was fine and suddenly turned on me. Haze. Lin Fan shook his head. Luckily, he had his own opinions and rejected the marriage that his father arranged for him. If he didn't listen to his father, then his life would have ended in tragedy. If he had another child, his status in the family would definitely plummet. Wanxiang sect, Dusk Peak. Lin Fan thought about it. He had never heard of this name before. He only hoped that it wasn't too far from U-City, otherwise it would be problematic. Senior sister, that fellow is so annoying. He definitely saw me. He definitely saw my pure body. How am I going to live in the future? Junior sister Yuan Jojo's eyes turned red. Junior sister, what is there to cry about? You aren't the only one who was seen. Didn't senior sister see us too? The other girl said. Yuan Jujio was silent for a moment, as if he had understood something. He said happily, That's right, I'm still so young, and there's nothing to look at. My senior sisters are all older than me, so they're definitely more eye-catching than me. He definitely didn't see me. He only saw the senior sisters. You scared me to death. I thought that I was seen. Now I am at ease. She patted her chest and heaved a sigh of relief like she was really at ease. However, the surrounding temperature had dropped. It was a little cold. She raised her head and noticed that the gazes that the senior sisters were looking at her with were a little off. Yeah. Yuan Jojo's ear was pulled, and she stood on her toes. Pain, pain, pain. Junior sister, I think you need to be taught a lesson. Junior sister's words made them furious. It was okay if she didn't say it, but the moment she said it, they couldn't take it. They were also shameless. How could they question him in front of him, whether he saw it or not? No matter what, they couldn't bring themselves to say such a thing. It was so embarrassing, okay? In particular, what the other party had said earlier made them feel that something was amiss. At the same time, they hoped that she didn't see it. But now it seemed like they were really thinking too much. They couldn't tell the sect elders, as that would be purposely telling others about it. This guy fell from the sky and landed in the hot spring. We were all bathing, and he saw us. Even if they were beaten to death, they couldn't reveal it. If others were to find out about it, even if nothing happened, the gossip would still ruin their reputation. Within the room, Lin Fan sat down cross-legged and channeled the true heaven body secret technique to slowly recover from his injuries. After this battle, he knew that he had many weaknesses. For example, his lack of strength. A serious comprehension. Chapter 295. Who? He spat out a mouthful of air. Father's collection was really strong. His organs had mostly recovered, and it was normal for there to be some flaws. He didn't have to worry too much about it. It was just that the side effects of bug controlling technique were a little overbearing. He felt that maybe it wasn't the side effects, but when he turned into a bug body, his body was pierced by a terrifying power. It caused the bug body to disintegrate before he could retract it. His circulation wasn't smooth, and it left behind a problem. Analyzing it, that was definitely the case. There was no other possibility. If there was, then it was definitely wrong. Wanshan sect? Who knew whether or not this sect was a top sect? Looking at the size of the sect, it seemed decent. But those naked girls that were blessed by his eyes didn't have much cultivation. They were slightly weak. With the small support system activated, his cultivation rose too quickly and his standards became higher. Those people of the same age were just too weak. Today, they told him not to leave, so he wouldn't. Before he understood the situation of the sect, naturally, he wouldn't be careless. Anyway, he had nothing to do for now. He would heal up and find a chance to raise his cultivation. He would return to the border and fight the alliance. If he didn't chase them back, he wouldn't stop. If his strength allowed him to, he really wanted to sweep them over. That night, dong dong, someone knocked on the door. Lin Fan opened his eyes and got off the bed. There was no one outside. When he was about to close the door, he noticed that there were dishes on the ground. There were 2 dishes, 1 soup, and 1 bowl of white rice. Kiki. Lin Fan smiled and looked around. He noticed that there was a pair of sneaky eyes looking at him from the corner of the wall. Oi! He shouted, scaring the owner of that pair of eyes out of his wits. He ran away with his tail between his legs, disappearing without a trace. How cowardly! What can I do to you? Although these people are not bad, I can't be careless. There will always be danger. Lin Fan carried the dishes and closed the door. He returned to the room and ate casually. Eating too much at night wasn't good for his stomach. The dishes were clean and the soup could be seen. He licked it and it was clean. It tasted good. Junior sister Yuan Jojo hid in another corner. She patted her chest and heaved a sigh of relief. So dangerous, she was actually noticed. If she was pulled into the room, she really didn't dare to imagine what would happen. Close your eyes. The scenes that happened in her mind shocked her so much that she opened her eyes abruptly. Sweat dripped down her fair forehead. In her fantasy, she was stripped of her clothes and thrown onto the bed. The other party picked up random things and stuffed them into his mouth. He carried her slender legs that could not be broken at all. Yuan Jojo's face turned pale, and he burst into tears as he ran away. It was too scary. If Lin Fan knew of his opponent's fantasies, he would definitely use a left hook, right hook, and a set of descending dragon dream fists to beat the crap out of his opponent. I'm lodging here, but you want to seduce me? Is there any justice in this? In a dark cave 8,000 miles away from Maigu City, Monster Emperor's fat body took up half the space in the cave. Fresh blood flowed from his body, and there were many pieces of flesh on his body. One could even describe him as a hornet's nest. Originally, such injuries weren't much to Monster Emperor. However, there seemed to be some kind of strange power entangling his flesh. Every time his flesh moved to repair his body, it would be destroyed by this force. His blood kept flowing. Alliance 9-star General Shwedu, what an infuriating fellow. The fat on Monster Emperor's body leaned against the wall, and his breathing became really heavy. General Shwedu's appearance and the two of them working together with those 8-star generals made Monster Emperor feel really pressured. It was obvious that he could escape, but the price he had to pay was huge. Did he regret it? No. Monster Emperor only had two choices in his heart. Whether he wanted to do it or not, there was no such thing as regret. Haha. Monster Emperor laughed. His injuries were really heavy, but for some reason, he started laughing. Even if someone asked him the reason, he wouldn't be able to reply. Maybe he grabbed the fat on his body and then released it, allowing the blood to flow. He just wanted to listen to that voice that made him happy. Fong fong. There was movement outside, followed by many insects carrying wild animals back one after another. Monster Emperor grabbed those beasts and sent them into his mouth. He bit them, and they were covered in blood. His gaze became really terrifying. The bodies of the beasts were too huge, and when his limbs touched the fat, there was the sound of waves. Instantly, Monster Emperor squinted his eyes. To others, it was really terrifying, but to him, it was a happy smile. He needed to swallow large amounts of meat and blood. Which bastard is hiding here? Suddenly, there was a furious shout from outside. A monk held a demon-descending pole, and many experts from the city gathered around him. Monster Emperor moved the meat, and he didn't try to hide anything. Naturally, it attracted attention. To some people, it was time to wipe out the demon. Maybe they could even gain something. How long? The cave shook, and a terrifying aura surged out. The monk with the demon subduing pestle was stunned. He sensed a dangerous aura coming at him, and he had a bad premonition. What kind of monster is that? Everyone raised their heads and looked at Monster Emperor. They were stunned, and their legs trembled. They didn't even have the courage to run anymore. The meat that I desperately needed is here. Monster Emperor was pumped up. Numerous tentacles struck and covered everyone. Screams exploded. The screams spread far and wide. Birds flew out of the forest, and the low sound spread out before slowly disappearing. A few days later, Lin Fan opened his eyes. He had mostly recovered, and there were no more problems. The side effects of the bug-controlling technique had been removed. That was the danger in his blood and cells. If he didn't get it out, it wouldn't be good for him in the future. Time to go. He was just a passerby here. He wouldn't have any interactions with Wanxiang's sect, as they weren't familiar with one another. There were many dishes placed on the table in the room. Apart from breakfast, it would be sent over at noon and night. Each time he searched, he would see those sneaky gazes behind the walls. When he noticed them, those gazes would disappear. He ran away dejectedly. He pushed the door open. Lin Fan looked around and remembered Wanxiang's sect. In the future, when he had the chance, he would come to thank them. What a waste. He didn't ask them where they were. But it didn't matter. After leaving this place, he would find a city, and naturally, he would be able to find out some things. Before that, he wanted to say goodbye to the other party and leave. This could be considered as settling the matter. If they were fated to meet again, they would have a good chat. He left the courtyard and walked into the distance. Dusk Peak was a little different. There were many female disciples, and he couldn't see any male. Apart from him, he didn't see anyone else. When the female disciples passed by, they would look at Lin Fan in shock like they were filled with disbelief. What kind of gaze is that? Am I too handsome? Lin Fan thought about it. That was possible. After all, handsome people would attract attention no matter where they went. However, he hoped that the other party was not attracted by his appearance, but by his inner strength and strength. After all, looks were just too shallow. At that moment, didn't I tell you not to come out? Ning, she frowned and asked. Lin Fan walked around Dusk Peak, and that annoyed her. Although Dusk Peak didn't have any restrictions, there was no need for him to come out from a room. Was he trying to tell everyone that he came out from her room? Lin Fan smiled. Lady Ning, sorry for disturbing you these few days, so I came to say goodbye. Now that he was speaking so seriously, he wasn't used to it. But he had no choice. He wasn't close to her, and he didn't want to suppress her. If he spoke too casually, it would make her feel like he was taking advantage of her. It wouldn't be good if there was a conflict. So, since his injuries were pretty much healed, it was time for him to leave. As for whether or not he saw her body, that wasn't important. He was even afraid that if he stayed too long, she would think that something was wrong. She would kill herself to prove her innocence. That wouldn't be good, although the possibility was small. But it was best if he left. Ningxi looked at this guy who she only knew by name and nodded. Okay, follow me. I will send you down. Remember, no matter who you meet, you can't say anything. Also, you can't say how you came here. Lin Fan smiled and nodded. Her words made it sound like he would rely on her. Was he such a person? Don't worry, I won't say anything. Moreover, nothing happened. Lin Fan said. Sometimes, the more one explained, the more helpless one felt. There was nothing wrong with what he said, but to others, it was easy for them to misunderstand. Ningxi took in a deep breath and warned herself that he didn't do it on purpose. She had to bear with it. She had to bear with it. Let's go. Ningxi turned around and led the way. Some female disciples greeted her respectfully. At the same time, they looked curiously at the guy behind Senior Sister. They were really curious. Who was this guy? Why was he on Dusk Peak? What was the relationship between Senior Sister and Little Brother? Why did it seem like they were close? Very quickly, they reached the foot of Dusk Peak and continued forwards. Before they reached the entrance, Ningxi felt that it was good to send him away in case of any misunderstandings. He was quite obedient and really stayed in the room for a few days. That made her heave a sigh of relief. If he casually came out and caused a misunderstanding, then it would be tough to say what would happen. Junior Sister Ningxi. Just at that moment, a voice spread from afar. A guy brought a few disciples and walked towards Ningxi. Lin Fan looked over. The man who was walking over was handsome and gave off a high-spirited feeling. It was as if there was something joyous that he couldn't hide and wanted everyone to know about it. When Lu Bin saw Ningxi, his eyes lit up. Although the two of them weren't from the same peak, he entered earlier than Ningxi. Thus, it was okay for him to call her senior brother. Senior brother Lu. Ningxi didn't want him to speak. At the same time, she frowned. Why did she bump into him at such a time? This was a little problematic. Chapter 296. Lu Bin was a genius disciple of Wanxiang sect and the top genius of Cloud Ocean Peak. Since a few years ago when Lu Bin noticed that Junior Sister Ning, she was really beautiful, he started to pay attention to her. After these few years of development, Junior Sister Ning, she became even more outstanding and he couldn't shift his eyes away. During these few years, he would appear in front of Junior Sister Ning, she to show his existence. At the same time, he was filled with regret. If he knew that she entered Wanxiang's sect when she was young, why didn't he notice? If he noticed earlier, he would have tried to get close to her before she grew up. Maybe it would have been much easier than now. Just fantasizing. Brother Lu. Junior Sister Ning, she's soft voice. His body shook and his hair stood up to show respect. He really couldn't take it. Ning, she looked at Lu Bin's weird expression and frowned unhappily. Although she didn't hate Lu Bin, she definitely didn't have a good impression of him. The person behind LV Bin gently touched his arm, reminding him that his senior brother was daydreaming again. They all knew that LV Bin liked Ning, but he couldn't show such a perverted expression in front of her. Lu Bin instantly reacted and felt that it wasn't appropriate. He coughed. To get rid of the awkwardness, the fantasy was too scary, but it was really nice. Lin Fan stood at the side and didn't say anything. He felt like this scene was similar to the one in his mind. Like, what was going to happen next was that someone was going to act cool. He didn't mind other people acting cool. Wasn't acting tough a very normal thing to do? As long as they didn't act on him. Junior Sister, where are you going? Lu Bin asked. Although they were in the same sect, they weren't on the same peak, so they didn't have many chances to meet. He couldn't just keep running to Dusk Peak, otherwise he would be slashed to pieces. That would affect him greatly. Senior brother Lu, I don't need to report to you where I am going, right? Ning, she said. Those words were a little irritating. Lubin actually didn't know how to reply. He could only use an awkward smile to cover it up. You don't have to report to me where Junior's sister is going, Lubin replied. Shortly after, he noticed Lin Fan standing beside Junior's sister Ningxi. He was stunned and frowned. He had a bad feeling. Junior's sister. I have never seen this person before. Which peak is he from? In the past, men had never appeared beside Junior's sister Ningxi. Now that one popped out, Lu Bin felt a sense of danger. Lin Fan smiled. I'm not a disciple of your sect. I just happened to come here. Oh, Lu Bin thought about it. It was okay if they weren't from Wanxiang's sect. But who was it? Why would they come to Wanxiang's sect? And why would they be together with Junior's sister Ningxi? He had to be careful and couldn't be careless. Junior's sister was young and didn't know much about the world. If she was tricked, then as her senior brother, his heart would definitely hurt. From the eyes of the other party, Lin Fan could sense a sense of hostility or perhaps vigilance. Are you treating me as a rival in love? Towards this, he could clearly tell him that he couldn't treat him as a rival. He didn't care about the quarrel between kids. He had more important things to do. Lubin didn't care about Lin Fan and smiled. Junior sister, let me tell you a piece of good news. I have finally become a Grandmaster Realm expert. Looking out, there aren't many people in the world who can reach such a realm at my age. This was what he was most proud of. Cultivation was the most important. Although Ning, she didn't like Lu Bin. When she heard that he had become a Grandmaster expert, she was shocked. 3 months ago, he was just Peak Master. Who knew that in such a short time, he would break through? That was just too shocking. Congratulations, senior brother. Ning, she said. As someone from the same sect, she had to congratulate him. LV Bin held his head high like a proud little rooster. He then looked towards Lin Fan and said proudly, Little brother, what do you think about me reaching Grandmaster Realm at my age? Lin Fan smiled, not bad. The moment he said that, rage points plus 111. Lu Bin was a little unhappy. Not bad. He said like there were many. Forget it, forget it. Looking at him, he knew that it wasn't much. Maybe he couldn't understand what that meant. But the lackeys and junior brothers behind him weren't so easy to deal with. Kid, you look like you don't understand. Let me explain it to you. My senior brother is like that. The disciple behind him raised his thumb and continued. There are so few people who can reach Grandmaster Realm at my senior brother's age. Anyway, I haven't seen any. Looking at your age, you should be at grade 7 or 8. If your talent isn't good, the possibility of reaching Grandmaster Realm isn't high. Lin Fan looked at the people in front of him. He was helpless. It was like a kindergarten kid showing off a spicy strip in front of him, telling him how delicious it was, how expensive it was, and how hard it was to buy. Could he take out a box of spicy strips and show it off to a kid? That wasn't something to be proud of. People might even say that he was bullying kids. He was lazy to bother about them. Lady Ning, since you have things to do here, then you don't have to send me off. I can leave myself. Lin Fan cupped his fists. Ning, she said, okay. She wanted him to leave quickly. It wasn't good for him to stay in Wanxiang's sect. Moreover, she didn't expect to bump into Lu Bin here. Rage points plus 111. Rage points plus 111. Rage points plus 111. This wave of rage points was just that. Maybe because he didn't support them, causing them to feel like they lost face. That should be the case, otherwise, it didn't make sense. Suddenly, a sneaky gaze came from afar. Even though he didn't see it, Lin Fan was very sensitive towards gazes. He found the target with a single glance and looked into the distance. However, the owner of the gaze slipped away with a swoosh. Lu Bin didn't have a good impression of Lin Fan. He actually ignored them. To him, he knew that he was strong and knew that he couldn't compare to him. He didn't want to be compared to him, which was why he wanted to leave so quickly. That was understandable. He was a young man, so who didn't want face? However, that was good. He could let Junior's sister see what a truly outstanding man was. As for such a person, he wasn't good enough for her. Just as Lin Fan was prepared to leave, a voice spread out from afar. Little friend, why did you leave so quickly? Did Wanxiang's sect do something wrong? The voice came from afar, but it also felt like it was right in front of him. Lin Fan turned his head and saw an old man walk over. The surrounding disciples were shocked and knelt on the ground. Who is this? Lin Fan muttered. Was he here to fight again? He didn't offend anyone, so he had to be careful. Looking at the situation, he couldn't be underestimated. At that moment, Ning Shi and Lu Bin saw the person who came. They all knelt on the ground and said respectfully, "Old ancestor." They didn't expect that the old ancestor who lived in the back mountain would actually appear here. This shocked them. Who knew what could have attracted the old ancestor over? You are? Lin Fan asked. I am Wanxiang sect's ancestor Wanshan. From the first day you came to Wanxiang sect, I have already noticed you. I thought you would stay for a while longer, but I didn't expect you to leave in such a hurry. I came out to meet you. Old ancestor Wanshan told the juniors to get up. His eyes locked on a Lin Fan, and his heart was filled with shock. A space crack appeared on Dusk Peak. Old ancestor Wanshan sensed it right away. When Lin Fan recovered in the room, the aura he gave off shocked old ancestor Wanshan. To have such cultivation at such a young age was really rare. No, this wasn't just rare. He had never seen such a thing before. So, old ancestor Wanshan didn't come out to meet him. Sometimes, an unknown fate came from a misunderstanding. Maybe this genius that shouldn't exist had a relationship with a female disciple. Be it for the female disciple or the sect, it would benefit them greatly. But now that he wanted to leave, that was a little off. Was his sect's female disciples not good-looking enough, or was someone too arrogant? Yi Fuqian looked at Lu Bin. Just now, this little fellow had blocked his path. He seemed to have said something to his little friend, and made his little friend unhappy. Lin Fan wanted to say something, but old ancestor Wanshan spoke first. Old ancestor Wanshan said, Friend, did my sect disciple make you unhappy? If that is the case, I will give you an explanation. The moment he said that, Ning Shi, Lu Bin, and the others looked at Lin Fan in shock. Ning Shi was shocked. Who was this person? Why was the old ancestor so polite and friendly to him? No matter what, Lu Bin was the senior brother of Cloud Ocean Peak, one of the top geniuses in the sect. Now that the old ancestor wanted to punish him for an outsider, it was a little unbelievable. Not only was Ning Shi stunned, even Lu Bin was dumbfounded. Old ancestor, did you make a mistake? I am a genius disciple and also the senior brother of Cloud Ocean Peak. No matter what, I can't lose face in front of an outsider. What he said next nearly made Lu Bin spit out a mouthful of blood. It is okay. It is just a joke between kids. I don't care and won't stoop to their level. Lin Fan smiled and then looked towards Lu Bin. It is not bad for you to reach initial grandmaster at such an age. Work hard and don't be arrogant. Rage points plus 222. Oh my God, what happened? Lu Bin was about to spit out blood. Were those words even something a human would say? Why did it feel like a senior was talking to junior? Also, looking at you, you are much younger than me, right? Even if the old ancestor has high hopes for you, you might not be stronger than me. Arrogant, really arrogant. How could this person be like that? Where did Junior's sister know him from? Was he the son of a sect leader? Which was why the old ancestor had high hopes for him. If that was the case, he was unhappy. Chapter 297. In front of the old ancestor, he didn't dare to act rashly. But even then, he wasn't convinced. Strength said everything. So what if he knew many people? Am I, Lu Bin, the kind of person who would submit to status? No, he wasn't such a person. But with the old ancestor here, even if he was unhappy, he had to act like he was. If he made the old ancestor unhappy, then even if he was the senior brother of Cloud Ocean Peak, it was useless. The old ancestor would definitely beat him up. Old ancestor Wanshan smiled. That is true. To you, such cultivation is like a kid who hasn't grown up. Please come on my back mountain. Lin Fan wanted to leave, but since he invited him, if he didn't go, he would be slapping his face. Moreover, he was stronger than him and was so polite, so he had to agree. Then, I will disturb you. Lin Fan hesitated and agreed. He felt helpless. He wanted to leave. He had stayed here for so long and didn't expect that he still couldn't leave. Old Ancestor Wanshan smiled. Little friend, please follow me. The moment he said that, Old Ancestor Wanshan rose into the air. Lin Fan followed closely behind and chased up. Lu Bin was really unhappy, but when he saw Lin Fan fly up, his eyes opened wide like he had seen a ghost. That can't be right. Martial artists couldn't fly. Only when one reached God Essence Realm could one fly in the sky. Didn't that mean that his cultivation was above God Essence Realm? How was that possible? How old was he? Papa. Invisibly, LV Bin shook his head. It was as if there was an invisible slap on his face. This slap was really painful. In the distance, there was a sound. I see that you are really energetic, so your cultivation must be really high, right? Old Ancestor Wanshan asked while walking. Lin Fan said, I am not talented, just 5-element realm. Pata, pata, 2 sounds. Old Ancestor Wanshan stumbled like he had fallen. Lu Bin knelt on the ground, his eyes opened wide, and he was totally stunned. In his mind, those words echoed. I am not talented, just 5-element realm. To LV Bin, these words were like 10,000 critical hits to him. Why do I feel like a clown? Suddenly, such a thought popped up in Lu Bin's mind. Thinking back to how he seemed to be proud of himself, it turned out that in the eyes of others, he was just a clown. The more he thought about it, the more devastated he felt. He covered his face and ran away dejectedly. The blow was too great. He really couldn't take it anymore. How could it be like this? The joy of breaking through completely vanished. He really wanted to find a river and drown himself in it. That was the end of it. Why did I have to meet this person? It really felt like slapping myself in the face. Couldn't he have appeared a day later? Ning, she looked into the distance, and her pupils constricted. How terrifying. Then, she looked at LV Bin and shook her head. Maybe he kicked a metal board, and LV Bin didn't stoop to his level. How did he manage to cultivate to such a level at such a young age? Even if everyone racked their brains, they would never be able to figure it out. Back mountain, Lin Fan smelled something fragrant and realized that this was a medicinal field. There were many spiritual herbs planted here. At the same time, many intelligent animals appeared. Little friend, what do you think about this place? Old Ancestor Wanshan smiled and asked. Lin Fan said, not bad. It can be said to be a celestial realm. Ha ha. I planted all of these when I was bored and slowly accumulated to such a level. Old Ancestor Wanshan was really proud of his achievements. He was just playing around to kill time, but who knew that it would get bigger and bigger? He started to pay attention to it. Lin Fan really wanted to know what Old Ancestor Wanshan wanted to say when he called him over. Or maybe he just wanted to show off. If that was the case, he was willing to support him. After that, he would leave this place and head to other places. Amazing, amazing. Old Ancestor Wanshan's medicinal field is a priceless treasure. Any spiritual herb left outside would be a treasure that people would kill for. Lin Fan supported one and looked at the situation. If he really wanted to support him, he didn't mind. He was an old man, and he hoped to meet someone who understood him so that his old heart would be happy. Old Ancestor Wanshan smiled and looked at the herb field proudly. He then said humbly, No, you are exaggerating. My herb field can only be considered average. In a few decades, maybe it will be able to grow. Come, let's not talk about all this. Little friend, please sit. Lin Fan sat there and waited for Old Ancestor Wanshan to brag. Then, he would do the perfect thing and he would be able to leave. Old Ancestor Wanshan thought that Lin Fan was only at Void Realm and didn't expect him to be at 5-element realm. This shocked him. After all, he was just too terrifying to have such cultivation at such a young age. When he was at his age, he was still playing around at Master Realm. But he didn't know that Lin Fan was a dual cultivator at 5-element realm. Otherwise, he would have been terrified. Lin Fan wasn't good at acting cool, and even if he was, he wouldn't know how to. He just wanted to leave, and there was no need to act cool in front of him. Till now, I still don't know your name. Old Ancestor Wanshan asked. Lin Fan said, My name is Lin Fan, Lin Fan. Old Ancestor Wanshan thought about it. There weren't any sect disciples with such a name, so he shouldn't have remembered it wrongly. But old ancestor Wan Shan didn't ask too much. One had to be good at talking, and he couldn't ask too much to scare him. Little friend, when you appeared in Wan Xiang's sect, I sensed it. I wanted to appear, but when I thought about Dusk Peak's hot spring, I felt that it wasn't appropriate. The place you fell into was... Before old ancestor Wan Shan finished, Lin Fan continued. Yes, that is indeed the case. I fell into the hot spring and saw your 6 female disciples bathing. But the path of martial artists is full of thorns. The more I cultivate, the more I feel that all roads lead to the same destination. There is no difference between men and women. To put it simply, it is just a little more or a little less. Flesh drumming points or flat points. At the end of the day, it is all flesh. Lin Fan sighed. Don't think that he was dumb. He was actually really smart. How could he not think of such a small plan? You didn't even need to say it, and I knew what was going on. Aren't you just hinting that there are female disciples bathing in the hot spring, blah, 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 and then you want me to be responsible for 6 of them? Dream on. Even my father wasn't able to arrange a marriage for me. Even if you're an ancestor, you can't have this kind of face. Otherwise, if my father finds out, he will definitely find you. I want to see what kind of face you have that I can't even help you get married. You can get 6 in one go. You are so shameless. So he just said it out directly and then used cultivation as the ending. Let's see how old ancestor Wan Shan would react. He said that this was the reason why Wan Xiang's sect's old ancestor would come find him. He saw that he was young and had high cultivation, so he wanted to rope him in. This little trick was nothing. To him, if he really wanted to play, the best way would be to lock him up and then tie him up. When he had kids, he would let them walk around in front of him every day. Calling him Papa might really get him tied up by the other party. Of course, he wouldn't tell others about this method in case he really tried it. That would be a tragedy. Old ancestor Wan Shan's hand that was touching his beard stopped. His smile froze, and he looked at Lin Fan with his mouth agape. Waves rose up at his heart. Don't be fooled by his age. In fact, when he was younger, he was also a ferocious hatchet man. Oh my God, he had lived for so long and had never seen such a shameless person. He fell into his disciple's hot spring and saw her naked body. To be able to say such things, how shameless did he have to be to say such things? If not for his age, he wanted to press Lin Fan to the ground and rub him against it. Show off, show off. Old ancestor Wan Shan coughed and smiled awkwardly. Such words do make sense. Lin Fan smiled. He had to be so direct, otherwise, he wouldn't be able to suppress him. All right, others didn't know, but he definitely did. Maybe he could ask, Old ancestor, do you know where Laozhan City is? Lin Fan asked. He wanted to head back now. There was no point in staying here. Fighting with a bunch of kids was just too embarrassing. Following a bunch of old men, it was easy to make one look too old. This was why it was better to fight and kill. There wasn't much to talk about. Just say a few words and then fight. How comfortable was that? Laozhan City. Old ancestor Wan Shan said with a weird expression, You came from Laozhan City? Lin Fan didn't hide anything. Right, I went to Maigu City from Laozhan City and was badly injured by a bunch of Alliance members. Someone saved me, and I ended up here for no reason. Now that my injuries have healed up, it is time for me to head back. Suddenly, old ancestor Wan Shan laughed. It wasn't because Lin Fan was strong, but because he actually came from a border city. He was so righteous at such a young age. Little friend, Laozhan City is far from here. If you head east, you will need at least a month. Old ancestor Wan Shan said. Lin Fan was stunned. He didn't expect that he would need so long. Naturally, he knew that old ancestor Wan Shan wasn't talking about riding a horse, but flying in the air. If that speed required a month, then wouldn't it take a year? That was just too far. Who was the one who saved him? How'd he send him over? Actually, even Monster Emperor didn't know how Lin Fan came here. The dimension was really mysterious, and there were many hidden nodes. If one wasn't careful, one would get lost and end up in a random place. Thank you, old ancestor, for telling me. If there is nothing else, then I will take my leave. Lin Fan said. Little friend, please wait for a moment. Old ancestor Wan Shan said. The herb field was flipped upside down, and all the herbs were separated from the fertile soil, and floated over. Little friend, although these herbs aren't top grade, they are still useful to the border cities. I want to follow you over, but please take a look. Old ancestor Wan Shan lost a leg, and at the same time, his right sleeve was empty. The missing leg was formed from true essence to make it easier for him to walk. 20 years ago, I led the entire Wan Xiang sect to fight. Except for me and some of the elders and disciples, the rest stayed there. Now, the Wan Xiang sect seems to be doing well, but in fact, it is only me who is supporting it. Therefore, I hope my young friend can understand that I have to take care of these young disciples. Lin Fan was filled with respect. He didn't expect old ancestor Wan Shan to pay so much. Haha, let's not talk about all this. Little friend, you have something important to do, so I won't keep you. If you have a chance, you can come to Wan Xiang's sect, and I will definitely accompany you. Old ancestor Wan Shan smiled. Lin Fan cupped his fists in respect. Goodbye. Thank you, old ancestor, for your kind intentions. I will definitely pass it on. P.S. Thank you guys with the title of God. He. Chapter 298. Old ancestor Wan Shan looked at that person who left and muttered, "It is good to be young, but there is no romance." Based on what he knew, the 6 Dusk Peak disciples weren't ugly. There was even a petite one. If she was a little hot-blooded, then I.O. Old ancestor Wan Shan covered his face with one hand and scolded. I am such a shameless old thing. What am I even thinking about? Is this something an old person can think about? Lin Fan left in a hurry. When he flew out of the Wan Xiang sect, his sneaky eyes looked at the sky again. This time, he was not discovered until he disappeared without a trace. I'm finally safe. Junior sister Yuan Jiujiu patted her chest and relaxed. She must have delusions of being raped. A few days later, Lin Fan rushed out of Wanxiang's sect. He was really annoyed and helpless. Actually, Wanxiang's sect was a decent place, and old ancestor Wanshan was a decent person. At that time, he wanted to say that he should give a speech to the sect's disciples. Then, he would say that everyone here was trash. But thinking about it, it wasn't appropriate. Wanxiang's sect had been through the Alliance War and sacrificed many people. Maybe many of them were the descendants of those people. So what right did he have to say that they were trash? Suddenly, there was movement in the distance like there was a battle. Many trees collapsed and birds flew up. Lin Fan didn't dare to be careless. After the Maigu City battle, he became more wary. Or rather, it was more suitable to describe him as cunning. Was I once bitten, twice shy? How could I have gone through this and left a shadow in my heart? He regretted leaving a shadow in his heart for no reason. That was such a bad thing. Huanji, follow us back to be punished. At that moment, a girl was surrounded by 4 guys. She wanted to flee, but her path was blocked. She could only face them head-on. The 4 of them were really sharp. Although they didn't go all out, their attacks were really vicious. Keep dreaming. If you want me to follow you back, let's see whether or not you have the ability. Huanji said coldly. Her fingers shook and a pink mist spread out. Be careful. That is Huanji's demon illusion footprints. Don't fall for it. Someone warned. So it's just rookies pecking at each other. Lin Fan watched for a while and lost interest. He thought that it was a fight between experts, but thinking about it, it made sense. How could he be so lucky to be able to meet experts so often? It was already good enough to meet some weaklings. Originally, he wanted to leave and let the rookies peck at each other. Perhaps in the future, the rookies would grow into experts, and at that time, they would understand a bit more fun. However, he stopped. Shidao sect? This sect's name sounded familiar. He didn't recall it, but after thinking about it, he recalled that when he wiped out the 9 Bug Gang division, he met 3 Shidao sect disciples, and he hammered them to death. When he was in Black Mountain, he met an expert from Shidao sect. He even conned him and made him block the octopus monster for him. If he couldn't even remember this, he would really be too heartless. Neither side is a good person. Lin Fan mumbled to himself. It was getting late, and there was no point in continuing to peek. Then he swaggered out. Stop fighting, all of you stop. He grumbled. His tone was a little overbearing. What was there to fight for? It was useless even if they fought until the next day. Look at who came out. All of you who used internal strength couldn't satisfy his needs. However, thinking about it, no matter what, the 5 fellows who provided him with rage points could provide him with a lot. When the 4 shit-out sect guys saw Lin Fan walk out, they were shocked. They quickly retreated, but they also blocked the path to ensure that Huan Ji had nowhere to run. When Huan Ji saw someone walk over, she was wary. She didn't know who he was, but he looked young, and it was easy for people to underestimate him. Of course, that wasn't easy. She was really being underestimated. Lin Fan looked at the 5 of them and said, "What are you fighting for? All of you kneel down. I don't have time to waste with all of you, so behave." If there were hundreds of such experts, he would have had time to play with them. As for now, it was a waste. There were too few of them, and he wasted too much time. It wasn't worth it. "Who are you?" "Shidao sect is doing things. Please move aside." One of the guys said. He was Shidao sect's 6 fingers. Although his position wasn't high in Shidao sect, he was quite famous outside. Moreover, as one of the large sects, normal people weren't willing to offend Shidao sect. This was why he had to introduce himself. "Don't you understand what I said? All of you kneel down." Lin Fan said. 6 fingers frowned and was really unhappy. He then told the people beside him to deal with him. At that moment, a bald guy walked out. "Kid, you are asking to die." His ferocious appearance was very sinister. When he clenched his 10 fingers, the crisp sound of bones cracking could be heard. Pung! He stepped forwards and left a deep footprint on the ground. He instantly disappeared from the spot. "How long?" Lin Fan shook his head. These people were too weak. He simply raised his hand and easily grabbed their heads. Then, he pressed down with his palm, causing their faces to fall onto the ground. The sound was low, and they had no way to resist at all. "I told you to kneel down. Why didn't you understand?" 6 fingers looked at Lin Fan in shock. It was obvious that he didn't expect the kid to be so strong. Huan Ji also looked at him in shock. Who was this person? Lin Fan didn't want to waste time on the few of them. He disappeared from the spot and appeared in front of 6 fingers. He punched his stomach. 6 fingers clutched his stomach and knelt on the ground. He even spat out bile. Pung, pung, pung. The 4 of them all fell to the ground, but none of them died. He needed their rage points, so naturally, he wouldn't let them die so easily. He looked towards Huan Ji, the only girl. She looked really young, but she probably had a technique. Be it her aura or feeling, she didn't look young at all. Of course, to normal people, naturally, they wouldn't be able to tell how old she was. They would definitely treat her as a young girl. Huan Ji's expression changed, and then she gave a smile that she thought was really alluring. "Thank you, young master, for saving me." Pung. He punched her. Huan Ji's bright eyes slowly became stunned. At the same time, she was filled with disbelief. "How old are you and you're still acting dumb in front of me? Don't you feel disgusted? Anyway, you aren't a good person. Lie down." How could he, Lin Fan, be seduced by any woman? He didn't understand what women were thinking. They only knew how to seduce and didn't know how to run away. That way, they would look up to him. He looked at the 5 of them on the ground. Lin Fan directly trashed their cultivation. They were very weak and not worth mentioning at all. However, in case they struggled in the air and fell to their deaths, he tied them up and carried them in his hands. He continued to rush into the distance. As for the grievances between them, he didn't care about them at all. With such weak cultivation, what grievances could there be? 6 fingers woke up. He felt a wind blow at him, and his face hurt. What was going on? Why did he have such a feeling? Instantly, he was shocked and opened his eyes. What? He looked down. They were really far away from the ground, and everything below seemed really small. He was flying in the sky. He sensed that something was tying him up. He raised his head, and as expected, it was that kid. Flying? An expert above God Essence Realm. The people around all woke up. When they realized that the situation wasn't right, they all hollered. Very quickly, they realized that their cultivation was empty and they didn't have any internal strength at all. "Sir, who are you? Do you really want to be enemies with Shidao sect?" 6 fingers hollered in rage. Rage points plus 333. Rage points plus 333. Huan Ji had woken up long ago. Facing everything, she was totally stunned. She didn't expect that things would turn out like this. Lin Fan glanced and smiled. What enemy? I killed so many of your Shidao sect people, so I won't add a few more. I will rip off your clothes and toss you to a place with many people. Not bad, not bad. Rage points plus 999. Rage points plus 999. Lin Fan felt that he was a person who knew how to accumulate. So what if there were only 5 of them? As long as he worked hard, he would definitely be able to accumulate enough rage points. Although he was rushing back, it didn't stop him from facing things along the way. As long as he faced them along the way, he would attack. For example, these 5 people were having a good fight and didn't offend him. So why did he have to deal with them? He could tell them clearly. He didn't have any reason. He just didn't like Shidao sect. It was just so simple, and there was nothing complicated about it. The 5 of them were from Shidao sect, and their cultivation wasn't at God Essence realm, so they couldn't fly. Naturally, they couldn't have come from far away. Maybe Shidao sect was not far away from him. But with his current situation, there was no need to take the risk. There were so many experts in large sects, it was unimaginable. If he faced the situation at Maigu City, he wouldn't be so lucky. No matter what, he had to at least raise his cultivation to peak 5-element realm or yin-yang realm. At that time, as long as he didn't meet a top expert, he might be able to fight. Even if he couldn't win, they wouldn't be able to catch him if he ran, right? If he was forced into a corner, he would rip open the space and flee. If they weren't happy, then chase. Let's see who could outrun who. Young master, we have no grievances, so why are you doing this to me? Let me go, I am innocent. Huan Ji begged. Lin Fan frowned. Don't beg, rage me. If you dare to beg, I will beat you up. If she begged, then who would give her rage points? Huan Ji was furious. She didn't expect to meet such a lunatic. She really didn't expect it. Rage points plus 999. If it was possible, she really wanted to pull out his heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys and stomp them in a dog sh*t. If Lin Fan knew, he would definitely exclaim, what a violent woman. After a period of time, he noticed that the 5 of them didn't give him any rage points. What a waste. He increased his speed and dived down. When he was about to land, he waved his arms and smashed the 5 of them to the ground. There was a loud explosion. They were ripped apart. The scene was gory and indescribable. To Lin Fan, he didn't bother at all. He didn't waste time and just left right away. P.S. Thank you. Che Chi Pao, the 100th Alliance leader, 50,000 reward. P.S. Thank you. Tan Yun Yun, Director Shang, 1416, 0 in Lai. Book friend 201901-1805, 3708251. Dragon Emperor by Yun. Mumu Che Gon, 10,000 reward. Thank you. Chapter 299. I know too little about this world. Lin Fan didn't hide his weaknesses. He didn't understand the distribution of sects and cities at all. Apart from remembering a few places that he had been to, he knew nothing else. He didn't know where the Imperial Dynasty was. It was the same for the top sections. It seems like I have to think of a way to get a map. If not, I will easily become a person with no sense of direction. Lin Fan thought about it and agreed with his own thoughts. What was the saying? Fools weren't scary, but fools who didn't know the way were scary. He wasn't a fool, but he was even scarier than fools. He was someone who didn't know the way. Shidao sect was his enemy. Although Shidao sect didn't offend him, he would leave it for now. Once the alliance matter was solved, he would play with Shidao sect. He was thinking about something. If those top sects sent experts to help, would it reduce the pressure on the border cities? Moreover, the alliance would feel some pressure and slow down their attacks. Actually, one didn't need to think to know. That was something that had to happen. But during this period of time in Laozhan City, he didn't see many sects willing to help. The world is too huge, and I don't understand it at all. This is so awkward. Lin Fan felt that the time he came to this world was a little off. Speaking of which, it was indeed a little early. Speaking of which, it was also a little late. The alliance matter exploded, and the sense of justice in his heart made him unable to retreat. If he waited for the alliance matter to pass, no matter what the environment was like, at least he wouldn't be so busy. If he had enough time, he wouldn't care about the alliance. If they continued to be arrogant, he would smash their heads. Just like those few before, he would smack the ground and instantly explode. It was simple, and there was no conflict at all. You city outside the Alliance main camp. A killing aura covered half the sky. Lin Wani stood on the walls of the Alliance's main camp, with numerous experts following behind him. In the distance, the arrival of the Alliance's subjugation army was obviously to force Lin Wani to retreat from this place, but they didn't attack. Instead, they set up camp there and watched covetously. Lin Wani, I think you should leave and return to your city. To deal with Lin Wani, the Alliance headquarters sent the strongest general on land, Gang Xiong. The one who spoke was 9-star General Gang Xiong. His muscles were as tough as steel, but his true essence was really weak. In the Alliance headquarters, there were a few peak experts who only cultivated the body to such a realm. Honest people don't act tough in the dark. Come over if you have the guts. Lin Fan was disdainful. He hooked his finger at the other party. It was impossible for him to leave this place. General Gang Xiong looked coldly at Lin Wani. Come here? That was impossible. Do you really think that I, Gang Xiong, am an idiot? Setting up a stage to shout is one thing. Directly fighting is another. Lin Wani, as long as I, Gang Xiong, stand guard here, you can forget about taking another step forward. Gang Xiong roared out furiously. His voice reverberated through the entire world. What a F***king loud voice. It's making my head explode. Take it a step further? I'll show you a step further. Come on. Lin Wani jumped down from the top of the wall, took a big step forward, and stood with his hands behind his back. Come on. Didn't you say that you wouldn't let me take another step? Now I've walked quite a lot. Gang Xiong squinted his eyes and cursed in his heart. The person he didn't want to see the most was Lin Wani. But he had no choice. The Alliance headquarters sent him over to stop Lin Wani. If he wanted to continue, even if he had to sacrifice his life, he had to stop him. Gang Xiong was really helpless. Sacrifice his life? Actually, that was a really unfriendly action. He would head out to block Lin Wani, but he would definitely flee. He wouldn't really stay here and sacrifice his life. General, we are prepared to chase these natives out of our land. Gang Xiong didn't bother about him. Pitiful people were brainwashed by the Alliance to sacrifice their lives for the Alliance. For who? It should be for those in power in the Alliance headquarters. He was a smart person. The Alliance was invading other people's homes, but there was no reason for that. Only some stupid people believed that the Alliance was saving them. But the Alliance's resources were about to run out. It was normal for the Alliance headquarters to want to occupy new land. Now that the Alliance was prepared to use all their strength to fight the rich land, it wasn't like before when they were fighting on a small scale. Lin Wani, you are really something. Now that Maigu City has been broken through by the Alliance, the other defense lines will be broken. Even this place will be the same. Now you have two choices. One is to fight the Alliance to the death, and in the end, all of you will be wiped out. The other is to join the Alliance. I can ensure that you will definitely be a 9-star general in the Alliance. Gang Xiong wanted to recruit Lin Wani. That was what everyone in the Alliance wanted to see. Although it was really difficult, many people had hope that if Lin Wani was recruited by the Alliance, then everything would become much simpler. Nonsense. If you have balls, then say that in front of me. Let's see whether or not I will stuff your head into your butt. Lin Wani scolded Gang Xiong. He didn't care about his identity as a 9-star general at all. Look behind. Do you recognize those corpses? 9-star general. I turned in a 9-star jerky. If you want to take his corpse, let's see whether or not the Alliance has balls. The Alliance people looked at the corpses on the wall, and their expressions were really ugly. Those familiar and respectful corpses were Alliance 9-star generals. It was as if their faces had been slapped by someone who could understand the pain in their hearts. Some hot-blooded people's eyes turned red, and they hollered in rage. They wanted to charge up and fight Lin Wani to kill all the natives in the world. These hot-blooded young people were all from the college faction. They were taught their thoughts and perfectly inherited the thoughts of those in power in the Alliance headquarters. After coming here, they couldn't enter the battlefield and could only do some manual labor. A true battle required true experts. Naturally, Gang Xiong was furious, but he was really calm towards Lin Wani's provocative actions. Anyway, the people who died weren't his family or people he was familiar with. It didn't matter. Lin Wani, I heard that you have a son and you have sent him out of the city. If your son comes to the Alliance as a guest, will you come? Gang Xiong smiled and asked. Since they couldn't attack Lin Wani, then they would attack his son. Lin Wani squinted and looked at Gang Xiong before returning to the main camp. Old Master, they're attacking Young Master. Old Wu was worried. Don't worry, even Zhang Tianshan doesn't know where that kid ran to. With just these Alliance people, they can't even enter, so how would they be able to find him? Lin Wani was really calm. It was obvious that he didn't believe that the Alliance could find his son. Today, they were not far away from the Alliance experts, but both sides didn't move at all. It wasn't that they didn't want to fight. It was that they temporarily couldn't move. Lin Wani really wanted to wipe them out, but if he did, the Alliance would gather a large number of people to suppress this place. U City was weak and naturally couldn't fight against the Alliance. But it was good now. Both sides didn't disturb one another and formed a balance. General Gang Xiong was ordered to defend against Lin Wani. As long as he didn't attack, both sides would coexist peacefully and no one would offend the other. The U City experts all understood that this battle couldn't be solved rashly. They needed a chance. At the same time, if more experts came to help, then things would become much simpler. What a waste. Those people only cared about their own benefits. There were even many top sects that wanted to welcome the Alliance experts. That was because only then would they have a chance to change the current situation. Hell Mountain. This was a dangerous place, or rather hell. The sky was dark, and there was no light at all. A black mist floated in the air, and occasionally, there would be ear-piercing noises. Evil God Jinming was smashed into the void current in Laozhan City, and no one knew if he was dead or alive. The experts who followed him were all dead. This was something that Hell Mountain couldn't accept, especially Evil God Jinming, who was one of the higher-ups of Hell Mountain. Now that they lost a higher-up, it was a huge blow to Hell Mountain. They had to find the Alliance headquarters for an explanation. They couldn't let their men die in Laozhan City for no reason at all. Did they think that Hell Mountain was easy to bully, or were Hell Mountain people just cannon fodder to the Alliance headquarters? Those people from Ocean Emperor Island were much more fortunate, especially those people who were chased back by Evil God Jinming. They all felt that they were so lucky to be able to avoid such a thing and let them take the blame. If they went too, maybe something would happen to them. Maybe something would happen to them too. In the end, they had to thank Evil God Jinming. The Alliance headquarters wanted to gather all the powers to occupy rich land. Evil God Jinming chased people from Ocean Emperor Island away, and that was the exact opposite of what they wanted. To the people from the Alliance headquarters, they were furious too. Why do you have to act cool? If Ocean Emperor Island people went too, things might not have turned out like this. Now it was okay. To act cool, he even sacrificed his life. What a waste. They even had to give Hell Mountain an explanation. That night, Lin Fan landed on an endless sand dune and rested for a short while. The journey was long, and it would take a month without resting. It was really a little far. Bug controlling techniques, special internal strength spread out. Pung pung. Scorpions attacked from the distance. There was nothing to eat, so he just had to eat some roasted scorpions. The wind at night was not small, and this area was still quite dangerous. To others, it was naturally dangerous everywhere, but to Lin Fan, it was just like home. Frying was the essence. But there was no oil here, and he could only use fire to roast it. Not long later, Kachi, Lin Fan placed the scorpion in his mouth and bit it. It was crispy, and it tasted good. Chapter 300. The sand dunes environment was really bad for others. The wind at night was a little cold. Rage points. 93539. What a pitiful amount. Lin Fan pouted unhappily. He had worked so hard to accumulate. And this was all he got? He was really arrogant. 90,000 was too little. Why didn't he just head to the heavens? Did he forget about the tough days in the past? When he accumulated 10 to 20,000, he cheered. Wow, he had so many rage points that he couldn't use them all. Now that he had so many, he said that it was pitifully little. People were just so greedy. True essence and God-body strength. He really didn't want to admit that true essence was weaker than God-body, right? He must have made a mistake. What a joke. How could God-body be stronger than true essence? Improve. God-body 490 jumped. Each jump consumed 5,000 rage points. God-body 500 middle 5 element realm. Instantly, he felt a terrifying power surging in his body. There was no power in heaven and earth. It relied on one's own potential. The door in his mind had opened long ago. To put it simply, he had already opened the door to God, and he had to rely on himself for everything in the future. Based on the current situation, dual cultivation is necessary. I can't give up on one side because of the double consumption. That would affect my own development. To raise God body, or true essence, he couldn't cross realms to fight. At the same time, he also had many cultivation techniques. He could even search for more cultivation techniques. When he had enough uninitiated cultivation techniques, he could rely on refresh to find the most suitable cultivation technique for battle and combine them together. So he had to consume what he needed to cultivate. At that moment, sound spread out from all around. It was really dense and heavy like the sound of horse hooves. Who is here? Lin Fan was very curious. This was a place where even birds wouldn't poop. So who would stay here and block the road to rob others? That shouldn't be the case. In the distance, a bunch of people rode horses over. They held all sorts of weapons in their hands and were really aggressive. The leader was a fierce-looking bald man with a braid. He held a scimitar in his hand. The scimitar shone with a white light under the moonlight. He was riding a black horse. Very quickly, when they arrived in front of Lin Fan, the horses put down their hooves and breathed out hot air from their nostrils. Yellow Mountain Fortress sent you alone. Do you not respect our blood-vengeful fortress at all? The leader hollered angrily. There was a scar at the corner of his eye that slanted downwards. This scar made him look even more terrifying. Yellow Mountain Village? Blood? Evil Fortress? Lin Fan was a little confused. Was he involved in something that had nothing to do with him? I'm just a passerby, taking a short break. The current situation was a little baffling. I don't know you, Lin Fan replied. There were some things that he didn't want to get involved in too much, but for some reason, he felt a little excited looking at these people. He really wanted to do some happy things with them on this beautiful night. Kid, I am the 5th leader of Blood Vengeful Fortress, Zhou Fengwang. People call me Crazy King. You don't know us, but I know you. You little thing from Yellow Mountain Fortress actually dare to behave so arrogantly in front of us. Today, I will teach you a lesson. Zhou Fengwang was really domineering. His words were like a machine gun, and he didn't give Lin Fan a chance at all. Then, with a flick of his wrist, the curved blade in his hand spun along his wrist. He leapt down from his horse, his footsteps crisscrossing as he attacked Lin Fan with a trail of yellow sand. Kid, don't be so frightened that you pee your pants. Zhou Fengwang gave out a cruel smile, and the curved blade in his hand struck towards Lin Fan. Lin Fan blinked. This person came for no reason at all. He was a low-profile person and rarely offended others. Now that he was in such a deserted sand dune, he was able to face people who came to find trouble. If he told others about this, who would believe him? Instantly, a bright light flashed, and he heard a heart-wrenching scream. My hand! My hand! Zhou Fengwang screamed as he held onto his bleeding wrist. What happened just now? Lin Fan stood there, and it didn't move at all. It was like he was doing acrobatics, waving the blade in his hand, and even spinning it. Then it was really simple. When the other party got close, he grabbed the hilt of his saber and slashed it down without saying a word. Lin Fan opened his palms and said helplessly, I really don't know who you are. Rage points plus 999, Zhou Fengwang sat paralyzed on the ground. His legs stepped on the sand, and he retreated. He hollered in rage, kill him. Take revenge for 5th leader. The ants that followed were furious. They didn't expect that this person would dare to hurt their fifth leader. He was just asking to die. But suddenly, they stopped and looked at the scenes in front of them with their mouths agape. Lin Fan stood there, and many swords floated behind him. The sharp sword intent covered all of them. His calm expression was one of helplessness, and at the same time, he didn't know what was going on. No one dared to move. Zhou Fengwang was terrified. There was an expert in front of him. "Who are you? Are you sick in the head? You don't even know who I am, and you want to fight me. I said that I didn't know you, but you said that you knew me. Now, you are asking me who I am. Damn, there's no need to say anymore. Although I am low profile, I don't want to play with fools. Since you all bumped into me, then you can't blame me." Lin Fan was a reasonable person. He had long been annoyed by these people and wanted to accumulate rage points. Now that he found a reason, he definitely couldn't let it go so easily. He pressed his hand down. Xiao. Many divine swords swept out with a whoosh. Their targets were precise, and they directly chopped off one of their wrists. Ah! Screams rang out continuously. Rage points plus 22. Rage points plus 33. Rage points plus 33. Lin Fan was stunned as he looked at these people. What was going on? Where did such small numbers come from? They weren't even as strong as his guards, right? They were just a little higher than normal commoners. Nowadays, some of the gangs were just there to make up the numbers. It was really possible to find some random people to make up the numbers. The blood-vengeful fortress members cried out. They didn't know what had happened. A bright light flashed, and they realized that their wrists were sliced off. It was so painful that they felt like they were about to die. Small existences, they have no value at all. Lin Fan shook his head and felt slightly regretful. He was really disappointed in them. If they could provide him with enough rage points, maybe he would treat them as important people. As for now, it was best if he did what he needed to do. He wasn't interested at all. "You jerk, do you know who is behind Blood Vengeful Fortress?" "Shidao Sect. Have you heard of Shidao Sect?" Zhou Fengwang hollered in rage. He wanted to mention the person behind Blood Vengeful Fortress to let him know that Blood Vengeful Fortress couldn't be offended. Now that he injured them so badly, didn't he have anything to say? "Stop talking nonsense. Let's go to your Blood Vengeful Fortress." Lin Fan opened his fingers, and true essence formed into a whip. He whipped the bunch of people who were crying out. What were they talking about? He didn't think much about it. But looking at the situation, it seemed like he was unknowingly getting connected to Shidao Sect. But all of that wasn't important. The main thing was that he didn't want to waste anything. Since he met them, naturally, he had to have a good chat with them or take a look. Zhou Fengwang was about to become a mad king. He whipped them. Although it hurt on their flesh, it hurt in their hearts. They lost all their face and were actually treated like that by a kid. Rage points plus 999 weight. What did he say? He wanted to head to Blood Vengeful Fortress. This shocked him as if he had seen a ghost. With the young kids so fierce now, it was okay that he bullied them, but he even said that he wanted to head to the main camp of Blood Vengeful Fortress. Was he looking down on their Blood Vengeful Fortress? But that was good too. He was delighted. They weren't his match, but since he sent himself over, there was no reason for him not to lead the way. As long as he was happy, he would let him know how terrifying Blood Vengeful Fortress was. Pata! Lin Fan waved the true essence whip in his hands and whipped a bunch of them. "All of you get up. Stop wasting time. Let's go." Pili Pala. The whipping caused their flesh and blood to split apart. Rage points plus 44 rage points plus 44. He had already shown mercy and didn't dare to use much strength. If not, a casual whip would have caused them to explode. 44 rage points were just too small. If he tossed it to the side of the road, he might not even pick it up. Lin Fan was like a shepherd, chasing this bunch of people towards Blood Vengeful Fortress under Zhou Fengwang's guidance. After a long while, another wave of people appeared at the place they left. "Father, the people from Blood Vengeful Fortress aren't here yet. Are they hiding around and waiting for us to fall for it?" A girl who looked really valiant and had a butterfly knife by her waist said as she looked at the empty sand dune. "Send the order for everyone to be careful." The middle-aged man looked around warily. Their Yellow Mountain Fortress and Blood Vengeful Fortress had agreed on a time to fight here. Now that the people from Blood Vengeful Fortress weren't here, it made him really solemn. Where did they go? He knew that Blood Vengeful Fortress would definitely come. There were no signs of them at all. Maybe like what his daughter said, Blood Vengeful Fortress was plotting something. Suddenly, Fortress Head, come quickly, there's a situation here. The people who went to investigate shouted. If they hadn't personally witnessed it, they wouldn't dare to believe it. Let's go take a look. Fortress Head frowned. He raised his hand and told half of them to stay. At the same time, he brought the other half to strike forwards. Fortress Head, look. Why are there so many hands? It looks like they were sliced off by someone. The blood hasn't coagulated yet. This didn't happen for a long time. The people checked and reported. It was nighttime now, and the surroundings were very dark. They couldn't figure out what was going on at the scene. Or was this a smokescreen that Blood Vengeful Fortress purposely made to confuse them? The truth was hard to predict, but they couldn't let it go just like that. Blood Vengeful Fortress robbed many of their people, and they had to save them. Fortress Head said, "Let's go. No matter what schemes Blood Vengeful Fortress has, they won't be able to stop us." Chapter 301. This is Blood Vengeful Fortress. Lin Fan chased them away. Along the way, he had used up most of his rage points, and they weren't able to provide any more. Small rage points. If not for the boring journey, he wouldn't have kept them here. This is Blood Vengeful Fortress. If you have any problems, you can find our Fortress Head. Zhou Feng Wang stopped bleeding, and his face was slightly ashen white. Till now, he didn't understand how someone so young could be so strong. At the same time, he understood that Lin Fan wasn't from Yellow Mountain Fortress. Yellow Mountain Fortress didn't deserve to have such strength. Fifth leader, why are you back so quickly? On the watchtower at the entrance of Blood Vengeful Fortress, the patrolling soldiers asked curiously, "Didn't they say that they were going to fight Yellow Mountain Fortress? They came back so quickly. Was the Yellow Mountain stronghold really that weak?" Zhou Fengwang didn't dare to reply. He just looked at Lin Fan like he was trying to see his attitude. But he noticed that Lin Fan was expressionless and didn't show whether or not he was going to tell him. "I will go inform them." Zhou Fengwang probed. But Lin Fan still didn't reply. This made Zhou Fengwang feel helpless. He scolded in his heart. At least reply. If he didn't say anything at all, he was really panicking. "Aya." Zhou Fengwang tried to walk towards Blood Vengeful Fortress. He turned his head with each step and realized that Lin Fan was still standing there without moving. He became bolder, and his footsteps became quicker and quicker. When he maintained a certain distance from Lin Fan, he hollered, "Save me! Someone is causing trouble in the fortress." Pucci. A cold light flashed. Zhou Fengwang maintained his running posture, but his pupils constricted. Cracks appeared on his neck, and then his head flew into the air. Shortly after, many heads flew up and spun in the air. They drew an arc and then landed on the ground. Many corpses fell to the ground and gave out a low thud. Calm. Lin Fan was really calm, and there were no fluctuations at all. Why'd he chop off their heads? Maybe he just wanted to see the ball that was tossed up. The people on the watchtower looked on in shock. They rubbed their eyes like they were seeing things. In that short moment, dong dong dong, the deafening sound of the gong transmitted a signal to the people in the village that trouble was coming. Blood Vengeful Fortress was supported by Xiedao sect. One didn't even need to look at them to know that they were the same as Nine Bug Gang. They weren't any good people. They would kill those who should be killed and leave those who shouldn't be killed. This small support system wasn't easy to use. Why did it have to be rage points? If he didn't need rage points, he wouldn't have spoken so much nonsense to them. Lin Fan raised his leg and stepped on the ground. With a kacha, cracks appeared on his toes. The ground split apart and a crack shot towards Blood Vengeful Fortress. The crack passed the fortress gate, and it instantly broke into pieces. The crack continued forwards, and the ground was split into two. In the end, it ripped apart the main hall. Who dares to behave arrogantly in Blood Vengeful Fortress? Instantly, an enraged roar rang out. The strength of the roar was not weak. The sound waves were like waves, surging out layer by layer, sweeping over. Lin Fan furrowed his brows. He felt a headache coming on. Did people like to shout and scream these days? Didn't they realize that their voices were ear-piercing, or were they all deaf? He wasn't the same as before. He wasn't a normal person. He didn't even want to look at weaker existences like internal strength. Even if he stood there and allowed them to beat him up, they might not be able to break through his defense. But this person was not bad. Cultivation was a little interesting. It felt like internal strength, but also like true essence. Half a bucket of water, God, essence realm. Instantly, a bunch of people charged out from the fortress. The leader had a dark and sunken expression. When he saw Lin Fan, he frowned. "Who are you? Why did you come to my blood-vengeful fortress?" He lowered his head and looked at the ground. To be able to cause such a terrifying aura, he definitely wasn't a normal person. If they fought, he might not be his match. But as the blood-vengeful fortress head, how could he be so easily intimidated? But when he saw the corpses on the ground and the heads, his expression turned cold. "Fifth brother." He raised his head and stared at Lin Fan in rage. He didn't expect Lin Fan to be so vicious. He was even in their blood-vengeful fortress territory. Wasn't he just slapping his face in front of him? "Okay, don't ask me who I am. I will simply introduce myself. My surname is Lin Fan. My goal here is simple, which is to kill all of you or to be killed by you. I have no other requests." Lin Fan smiled, but the smile on his face was asking for a beating. Rage points plus 999 rage points plus 999 rage points plus 999 rage points plus 999 rage points plus 111. Yeah, he felt like a cliff. He frowned and was a little unhappy. What was going on with these people? This blood-vengeful fortress was much weaker than 9 Bug Gang. Too weak. Why did it feel like they were just hooligans? The blood-vengeful fortress members were furious. Damn, one arrogant fellow. He actually said that he wanted to kill them. He couldn't take it. He really couldn't take it. Lin Fan raised his hand, and his sword floated behind him. Haze! What was going on? He really didn't want to play with the sword. Why did he play with the sword? That didn't feel good. Forget it. Why did he need to care so much to deal with these weaklings? Blood-vengeful fortress head looked at Lin Fan in shock. He knew just by raising his hand that Lin Fan was really strong. His strength far exceeded his. So how was he supposed to fight him? Go! Lin Fan pushed forwards with his palms. The sword that floated beside him slowly spun and pointed at the blood-vengeful fortress members. With a xiao, it broke through the air and struck towards the blood-vengeful fortress members. "Be careful!" Blood-vengeful fortress head exclaimed and didn't dare to be careless. He used half of his true essence to form a shield to block that terrifying strike. But anyone with eyes could tell that with such weak true essence, wasn't it just a dream to block the strike of someone who everyone called Sword God? Lin Fan's control was really amazing. He wasn't prepared to kill them and just wanted them to feel some pain and then earn a bunch of rage points. Instantly, blood-vengeful fortress head felt a sharp sword intent strike him. He hollered and pushed his fists forwards. A thin true essence shield appeared in front of him. One clash. With a kacha, the true essence shield was broken. With a xiao, the sword light flashed and sliced his leg out of habit. Poochie! Screams rang out. All the blood-vengeful fortress members fell to the ground. They hugged their legs and screamed out loud. Even the veins on their necks popped out. How regretful. Looking at the situation, you won't be able to kill me. Lin Fan shook his head and felt really regretful. He was just joking, so how could he treat those words seriously? He was a dual cultivation, 5-element realm expert. How could such a realm be a joke? Not to mention one blood-vengeful fortress. Even if there were 10 or 100 of them, they would still be the same. There was no difference at all. His rage points increased once more. Who are you? Blood-vengeful fortress head asked in fear. Why would such an expert come here? Moreover, their blood-vengeful fortress had never offended such a person. Lin Fan walked in the crowd and smiled. Didn't I tell all of you that I am Lin Fan? Why do you have such a bad memory? The current situation was not bad. He felt that if this continued, Although he wouldn't be able to accumulate hundreds of thousands of rage points at once, slowly, they would explode. Blood Vengeful Fortress was related to Xiedao sect, so it didn't matter if they were wiped out. Who knew? They might even be helping the heavens. Our Blood Vengeful Fortress has no grievances with you, so why are you doing this? Tell me if you have any requests. I will definitely satisfy you. Fortress Head was furious and really wanted to rip Lin Fan into pieces. But with the current situation, it wasn't a smart move to continue fighting him head-on. Lin Fan said, I don't need any requests. Rage, adjust your emotions. I just need your rage and nothing else. Do you understand? Fortress Head didn't understand his request at all. Rage? What rage? This fellow was just a lunatic. He felt that Blood Vengeful Fortress was targeted by a lunatic, and that was just too dangerous. Damn, don't kill me. I can give you a lot of riches. Fortress Head begged, but his eyes were filled with rage. He really wanted to kill this damn fellow in front of him. Lin Fan shook his head. I see money like dirt, so please don't use such lowly things to insult me. My fortress has a top beauty. As long as you let me go, I will give her to you. Shua. Lin Fan couldn't help but pull out his sword and slice off one of his ears. Don't use your beauty on me. I have a firm martial path heart. Fortress Head was in a tragic state as he covered his bleeding ear. His ear was bleeding and his leg was bleeding too. If this continued, he would die from the loss of blood. At this moment, Fortress Head really wanted to die. Bastard. You don't want anything. So what do you want? All right, do you have a faction map? Lin Fan asked. He needed such a thing. If he had a map, it would be of great help in the future. He would be able to know what powers were around. If he continued to run around like a swarm of bees, he was afraid that one day he would head into the enemy's main camp and be surrounded by a bunch of experts. He would then be sliced to death. Fortress Head said right away, yes. Actually, what did he have? Who would have a faction map? What was the use of that? But to lure Lin Fan over, even if he didn't have it, he had to say that he did. Lin Fan knelt in front of him and asked curiously, Really? Are you sure you aren't lying to me? I didn't lie to you, I really do. Fortress Head said hurriedly. Lin Fan smiled. Okay, lead the way. If you lie to me, then I will chop you to death. When he heard that, Fortress Head shuddered. I'm like this, I don't crawl. Lin Fan said calmly like he was talking about something really normal. Fortress Head dissed in his heart. Are you still King human? Crawl for me to see. But he had no choice. He could only crawl. Lin Fan looked at the people with broken legs and was slightly unhappy. Was his rage going to dissipate just like that? That couldn't happen. He raised his hand and slashed it down. Poochie. The true essence sword stabbed into their palms and pinned them to the ground. Rage points plus 111. Rage points plus 55. It was still okay. He just continued to rage like that. Chapter 302. Can't you crawl faster? You're so slow. Did you not eat? Lin Fan rushed him. He crawled too slowly, just a little faster than a snail. If not for him wanting the map, he would have killed him with one strike. Fortress Head was furious. Are you even human? It is already the limit for me, who doesn't have legs. To be so fast is already my limit. His wound rubbed against the ground, and it was really painful. He had already stopped bleeding, but now his wound broke open and fresh blood flowed out, forming 2 rivers of blood. A moment later, this is the place where you said you had the power distribution map? Lin Fan asked. An iron gate was embedded in the ground, and it was tightly shut. If one didn't enter, one wouldn't know what was behind it. Right, the thing is inside. Fortress Head nodded his head and looked forward to Lin Fan entering. When he lowered his head, a fierce glow flashed across his eyes. Lin Fan had long since seen the other party's every move. What a clever little brat. He was so angry at me. So how could I not sense it? He squatted down and grabbed the iron gate. With a crack, he ripped it apart. A tunnel appeared in front of him. What a thick blood smell. Lin Fan covered his nose and waved his hands. He then looked toward the Fortress Head and was a little unfriendly. Do you think you are dumb, or do you think I am dumb? Such a thick blood smell, and you are telling me that there is a map here? He knew that people were lying with their eyes wide open. What was so good about lying? Although it made one feel good, it depended on whether or not one had the strength to do so. The tunnel was really dark, and a thick blood smell surged into his nose. It seemed like there was a little danger within. He had to be careful and not be careless. Big brother, it is normal for there to be a blood smell. Our fortress is called Blood Vengeful Fortress, so if we don't have a blood smell, then how can we live up to our name? Fortress Head cried out and tried to argue for himself. He had to make Lin Fan believe him. Kiki. Lin Fan's smile was filled with wisdom. Was that really the case? Deep in the tunnel, an old man sat cross-legged and his body was soaked in a red pool of blood. The depth of the pool reached his neck. The old man seemed to be cultivating an evil technique and was absorbing the power of the pool. A thick blood mist spread around, making this place seem really terrifying. Woo-woo. There was the sound of crying. Not far from the blood pool, there were many wooden cages. There were many children in the cages, both boys and girls. The oldest was 7 or 8 years old, while the youngest was only 1 or 2 years old. Who? The old man took a deep breath. The blood mist floating above the blood pool turned into 2 blood dragons and was sucked into his nostrils. Instantly, the old man glanced at the crying children and said in a low voice, "Little brats, shut up or I'll eat you." Wow. The cries grew louder. I want to go home. I want my mother. The cries of children could be heard in the secret room. Blood Vengeful Fortress was built up by him. He gathered a bunch of vicious people to find these boys and girls for him, to use their blood to cultivate secret techniques. This was much better than searching by himself. It's too noisy. The elder's expression was one of displeasure, and anger appeared on his face. These little things crying was making his mind chaotic. It was better for them to all merge into the blood pool and become its nutrients. Over the years, his blood pool had been filled with the blood of countless young boys and girls. The bones had already turned into dregs and settled at the bottom of the blood pool, just as the old man was prepared to attack. A piercing sound spread out from the distance. What is that? The old man was stunned. With a put-on sound, something fell into the blood pool. When he saw who it was, the old man was furious. "Save me!" The stronghold master cried out. The other party was a complete lunatic, sick, and crazy. He had never met such a person before. "Filthy thing, get out of here!" The old man waved his arm, and with a loud explosion, Fortress Head flew out from the pool and smashed into the wall. His waist and the wall broke, and he spat out fresh blood. Fortress Head looked at the old man in disbelief. Like he was saying, "You old thing, you're so cruel. I snatched so many young boys and girls for you, but you made me smash into the wall and die. You deserve to die." But before he said those words, he died. He didn't die in the hands of others, but in the hands of his own people. The old man noticed that Fortress Head's legs were gone and was shocked. What happened? Did someone? At that moment, he looked towards the entrance of the tunnel, and an aura swept over. It was strong, not weak at all. Who is it? The old man was shocked and furious. His aura boiled and the secret room shook. Many pieces of stone fell from above. Many of them landed on the wooden cages that locked up the kids. When the gravel fell to the ground, it was crushed by another aura. Outside, why are there kids? Lin Fan was curious. This blood vengeful fortress was interesting. Did they have a special hobby? But when he thought about the thick blood smell, he understood. What replaced it was rage. He wasn't a fool. Why did they capture so many kids? It was definitely for cultivation. Scram out. Lin Fan hollered in rage. His voice spread into the tunnel. He wanted to earn some rage points. Who knew that he wanted to help the heavens kill demons and monsters? If his guesses were correct, then he would torture the people outside. Letting them die too easily would make them feel better. Instantly, a person swept out from the tunnel. He was really quick and didn't say a single word. Before he even faced Lin Fan, he slapped. A blood-colored light dyed the dark tunnel red. Lin Fan slapped forwards. 2 palms clashed. There was a low explosion, and it was really heavy. Lin Fan, on the other hand, floated up and landed steadily. "Old man, that's interesting. What are you doing in there?" You're so sneaky. The smell on your body is really pungent. How long has it been since you last bathed? Lin Fan pinched his nose and revealed a look of disgust. However, his expression was slightly solemn. It was a thick blood smell. How much blood did it take to form such a thick stench? Rage points plus 999. As expected, he wasn't a good person. They just met and just said a few words, and he was filled with killing intent. His rage points also rose to 999. Kid, you are asking to die. The old man frowned as he looked at Lin Fan. Where did this kid come from? He actually dared to behave so arrogantly here. Oh, that made sense. This was Blood Vengeful Fortress, and he definitely didn't know that he was here. If he knew, even if he was 10 times more bold, he wouldn't dare to behave so arrogantly. Lin Fan didn't expect to meet an expert. The old man in front of him gave him a feeling that he was an expert. But luckily, he wasn't a terrifying person. If he was like an 8-star general or 9-star general, he would be in danger. Old man, where did you come from? Lin Fan asked. His aura gave him a familiar feeling like he had seen him before. He recalled, that shithouse sect expert in Black Mountain. The aura that the old man gave off was similar to that shithouse sect expert, or maybe they came from the same source. The old man laughed coldly. You don't have the right to know where I came from. When I send you down, then I will tell you. If you don't want to say, then don't say. Why are you so arrogant? Isn't it just shithouse sect? It isn't like I haven't killed people from your shithouse sect. Lin Fan smiled. To the old man, those words were like a provocation. With a pung, the old man stepped on the ground, and instantly a red light boiled. It tore the ground and struck towards Lin Fan. Amazing, your control of true essence has reached a really high level. Lin Fan exclaimed. Whether or not he was an expert, he would know once he attacked. Lin Fan hollered and punched the ground. With a Poochie, his aura pressed down and a strong shock wave swept forwards, clashing with the red light. Shwa! Lin Fan disappeared from the spot and instantly appeared behind the old man. He punched forwards. Void True Sense, Void Dragon. A void dragon appeared in the air and pierced through the old man's body. But the old man's body seemed to be formed from blood. The void dragon pierced through and disappeared into the air. Lin Fan's expression was solemn, and a cold glow appeared behind his neck. Mixed energy broken jade hand. His fingers were really strong, and nothing could break them. He instantly turned around and clashed with the bloodlight. The two powers clashed with one another, forming a shocking aura. At the same time, sparks flew. The old man had the upper hand. This old man should be Yin Yang realm, a realm higher than me. But he definitely isn't domain realm. If he was, it wouldn't be so easy for me to fight him to such an extent. Lin Fan thought about it and slowly saw through him. But now wasn't the time to think about such things. It was time to beat the old man up. Old man, did you not eat? You are so weak. No wonder you have 1 foot in the coffin. I can understand you. Lin Fan's body was like that of a ghost. He was really quick and flashed in the air. His battle with the old man entered an intense state. Rage points plus 999, the old man was furious. What a stubborn kid. Pung. A low sound spread out and a bright light exploded out. Lin Fan bent his body and his legs landed on the ground, forming 2 long marks. He placed his arms in front of his chest and waved them to dissipate the aura. He then slowly got up. Not bad, you have some strength, but it is not enough. After understanding the situation, the old man should be at middle yin-yang realm. Luckily, he was a dual cultivator, otherwise he would have been crushed by him. Kiki. Unfortunately, that was impossible. Lin Fan hollered, and his expression became vicious. A thick aura exploded from his body, causing the ground to shake and crackle. His god body shook, and the space around him was disturbed like it was being burned by flames. True essence boiled and wrapped around his body. All the cultivation techniques he learned were decent, and he activated them all. The old man looked at Lin Fan solemnly and frowned. What a strong aura. Where did this kid come from? He definitely wasn't a normal person. Was he an old man who had returned to his youth? Impossible. His bone age was there, so he was a young kid. To be able to cultivate to such a realm at such an age, What kind of genius was he? The key was, he smelled the scent of a virgin. The kid in front of him hadn't lost his virginity. Good job, he sent himself to him. Chapter 303. If Lin Fan knew what this old thing was thinking, he would probably be furious. Virgin chicken? Do you believe I will kill you on the spot? It was a little disgusting, but it couldn't fill in the blanks. Who are you? I have never seen someone with such cultivation at your age. I am an elder of Shidao, Sex Blood Demon faction. Maybe I know your seniors. The old man asked. He had already acknowledged the other party's strength. Moreover, he actually didn't want to fight this kid. When two tigers fought, one would definitely be injured. Of course, he was playing tricks to wait for him to believe his words. Then, he would find a chance to attack. He was looking forward to it. I was originally a young master of a wealthy family, but I had nothing to do and was forced to walk the path of martial arts. As for whether or not you know my family's elders, I don't think it's important. After I beat you to the ground, I'll have a good chat with you. When the old man heard that, he was furious. He was so furious that his brows rose up. Rage points plus 999. He had never seen such an arrogant person. Did his mother know that he was so arrogant? Lin Fan really replied that he was sorry. His mother really didn't know. Okay, stop talking nonsense with me. I have raised my strength to the peak and the feast is about to begin. Lin Fan clenched his fingers and power boiled. With a pong, Lin Fan disappeared from the spot. A terrifying circular hole appeared where he was originally at. At the same time, a thick layer of dust rose up. Instantly, the old man came back to his senses. A terrifying aura spread out from behind him. He didn't dare to hesitate, turning around. His hands crossed, and a barrier appeared in front of him. Pong! A loud explosion reverberated. What terrifying strength! It can't be compared to before. The old man was astonished and didn't dare to be careless. He had met a true opponent, and if he underestimated him, the outcome would be catastrophic. He would probably die here. To Lin Fan, when his true essence and the power of his god body burst out, the entire sky was his. Don't ask why. That was what he said. Pong. The old man's stomach was struck by Lin Fan, and his expression changed. His body instantly turned into liquid to try to reduce the damage. Dream on. How could Lin Fan give the other party the chance to do so? With a maddened roar, he pushed out with both palms. A horrifying amount of power turned into a shockwave that covered an extremely wide area, ripping the void apart and wrapping the old man within it. The terrifying power left the old man with nowhere to hide. He could only face it head-on. The old man's face was filled with shock as a red light burst forth from his body. But even so, he was still unable to contend against Lin Fan's strength. He was simply too ill-prepared. Rumble. The old man's body flew backwards and smashed into the building. With a loud rumble, the building collapsed and buried the old man. Patter! The old man hollered in rage and flipped the wooden pieces off his body. But when he looked at Lin Fan, his expression changed. At this moment, Lin Fan raised both of his palms as countless legendary swords floated out from behind him. These legendary swords were spinning at high speeds. Go! Xiao! The divine sword, which was spinning at a high speed, attacked the old man continuously. Equals Sigma, for all, winky face rumble. Rumble. An explosion rang out. That entire region had been locked down by Lin Fan. No matter where they fled to, they would have to face attacks. Ah! The old man hollered in rage. A bright bloodlight broke out from his body and tore through the dust. Some of the bloodlight was like lasers that shot towards Lin Fan. Lin Fan didn't dodge. His body shook and he blocked it. With a pong, the bloodlight struck his chest. A shocking power spread over and Lin Fan retreated. Ooh! Lin Fan spat out a breath and blood seeped out from the corner of his mouth. It was a little interesting. God body cultivation rose to such a realm, but it wasn't invincible. If he took it head-on, he would still be injured. However, the injuries weren't serious. Interesting. He praised it slightly. It was indeed not bad. Kid, Do you really want to be enemies with Shithouse sect? The old man hollered in rage. His expression became more and more vicious, and his eyes started to turn red. Lin Fan smiled. Ayaya, your words aren't so nice. I am beating you up and not Shithouse sect. If you're afraid that you can't beat me, then kneel down. I swear that I will only chop off your 4 limbs and not one more. How about that? Old man. For all, rage points plus 999 rage burned in the old man's body. He was really furious. He said so much not because he was afraid, but because he didn't want both sides to be injured. Who knew that this kid would actually think that he was afraid? Kiki. Arrogant. Ignorant? Lin Fan realized that the aura that he gave off was a little off. How long? The sky shook. The clouds spun. Kid, you have totally infuriated me. Now, let's feel the terrifying presence. Yin Yang and 5 elements appeared. Lin Fan realized that the space around him changed slightly. This was a change in realm. He could feel the power of the 5 elements boiling. At the same time, Yin and Yang wrapped around him. Die! The old man hollered in rage. At that moment, there was a tremor. Lin Fan's legs sank into the mud. The mud was like a mudslide, and a blood-red color appeared. His legs seemed to be grabbed by something and were being pulled in. Shortly after, many small red particles appeared in the space around him. These red particles contained a terrifying power. Lin Fan's expression was solemn, and he didn't dare to underestimate it. Reverse heaven and earth. How long? With Lin Fan at the center, the space around exploded. A terrifying shockwave swept forwards, forming a mushroom cloud that surged into the sky. In the distance, Yellow Mountain Fortress rushed towards Blood Vengeful Fortress. They were still a distance away, and when they continued, they felt like the world was flipping. The ground started to shake. He raised his head, and a mushroom cloud appeared in front of him. Everyone, hashtag. It was like they had seen a ghost, although they didn't know what was going on. But the phenomenons in the distance caused their mouths to open wide, and they were filled with terror. What was going on? Isn't he dead? The old man panted and looked at the center with a solemn expression. His true essence was being consumed quickly. Even if he could replenish it from heaven and earth, it couldn't keep up with the consumption. Where did this kid come from? His realm isn't as high as mine, so how is he so strong? The old man thought about it for a moment. He came to a conclusion. This kid definitely had a fortuitous encounter, which was a fortuitous encounter. Uncontrollably, this deepened the old man's desire to kill Lin Fan. Suddenly, the old man felt the world spin. A shocking power wrapped around him, reversing yin and yang and the 5 elements. This wasn't caused by realm, this was Peng. The moment such a thought appeared in his mind, the old man felt a shocking aura strike him. Lin Fan appeared in front of the old man. He clasped his palms together and pressed forwards, smashing into the old man's chest. There was a loud explosion. The old man was smashed to the ground. Old fellow, what an amazing move. I nearly fell for it. Lin Fan had many injuries on his body, and they were all fresh. He originally underestimated him, but now he didn't dare to underestimate the old man in front of him. He was really amazing. If he was careless, the old man could really turn the situation around. At that moment, Lin Fan didn't hold back and didn't care at all. He used all sorts of techniques on his body. With Lin Fan at the center, the surrounding phenomenons were shocking. Demon ape, lightning, golden sun, void dragon. The ground was shaking. An old man was being beaten up here. That was something that the heavens couldn't tolerate. Peng! Lin Fan hollered. He clenched his fingers and gathered all sorts of special true essence on his fist. He gathered them all together and punched the center. With a loud explosion, a violent power struck everything. The surrounding ground cracked and then shook. Numerous pieces of dirt rose into the air. Ooh, one intense combo. It seemed like the old man was basically finished. Although he wasn't tired at all, his heart was. Bullying old men wasn't his style at all. So, it was good that it ended early. Rage points plus 999 you really have a tough life. You are old but not weak. Your body is strong. Not bad, not bad. Lin Fan smiled. He suffered such a violent beating and still had the strength to provide rage points. That was worth praising. Good job. A gust of wind blew over, dispersing the thick dust. Lin Fan searched, but he really couldn't find the old man. This hole was a little huge, and if he didn't pay attention, it would be tough to find him. He took a close look. Huh, good fellow. So he was here. He nearly couldn't recognize him. The old man's body was covered in blood. Everything around was dyed red. Oi, are you done or not? While you're still breathing, hurry up and tell me. Do you want me to bury your body, or do you want me to leave it in the wilderness and let the wild dogs come and bite you? Lin Fan asked. He was a humanitarian person. Even if he was from the evil sect, he wouldn't say that he was disrespectful to corpses. Rage points plus 999 if the old man had some scion bloodline. He would definitely roar in rage. His body would be covered in golden flames and blue lightning. Unfortunately, the old man didn't even have the strength to roar, much less transform. Lin Fan stood there and thought about it. What should he do? Should he just solve it like that? Suddenly, he realized that the situation was a little off. The old man really roared like he was about to explode. That shocked Lin Fan. He was already like that. So where did his strength come from? Pung, pung. A low sound spread out. He was stunned and noticed that the old man was covered in a red mist. His entire body was wrapped up in it. Damn fellow. The old man gritted his teeth. He needed a long time to recover from such injuries. However, he was now consuming all of his true essence and physical strength to use a secret technique to repair it. The side effect was that it could only last for an hour. At that time, his entire body would be powerless, and his true essence would be emptied. Even a child would be able to kill him. And now, this was his only chance. Pung! The old man recovered and flew into the air. What cultivation technique is that? Lin Fan was shocked like he had seen a ghost. He was beaten up to such a state and could still recover. I want it. Kid, I want you to die. The old man hollered in rage. A terrifying power spread out from his body. Lin Fan's expression was solemn. It was obvious that another battle was about to occur. Since that was the case, then bring it on. But suddenly, Lin Fan was stunned as he stood on the spot. The old man, who looked like he was about to use a huge move, didn't say a word. He didn't even turn his head and just dashed into the distance. Lin Fan reacted and chased. He hollered in rage. Intersection Omega, asterisk, monster, where do you think you are going? Thought you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.